Hi, you're Super Chuffer. It's midnight, it's always midnight, and this is my live react to the Search For Nicola Bulley documentary. I'm just going to play it, react to it. Start it right from the start. And I don't appreciate this. Like, they're putting these pictures of the, straight away, you know, pause and talk. That's what you're going to get from me, okay? So if you're like, oh, just let it play, then I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be pausing it a lot, talking a lot, and it might be rambling conversation, might be my thoughts. Get a drink, a snack, a cup of tea, if you like this sort of thing. If you want it edited down to a half-hour episode, then I'm sorry, this is a long one. Okay. Immediately, you know, I'm struck by the, like, what they put in our face straight away is the CCTV, yeah? And it immediately sort of writes off a few different ideas here and there, doesn't it? Like the tennis ball, for example. Paul's holding this thing in his hand that's got a round shape and it's brightly coloured. That's what people thought was a tennis ball. The children are in the frame, and we've not seen them. I don't want to talk about the children in terms of see their faces, talk about their names, stuff like that. I don't think it's appropriate for my YouTube channel. So that's now here. The quality of it is much, much better, much sharper. So you might think it's the original, because it does say ring at the top left, yeah? But of course we can also see that it's definitely edited, because the clouds, and without, like, I might have to do a separate episode on the CCTV, but this is the moment to really dig in here, is there's a car that goes past, you don't even see the top of the car. The clouds, I believe what they've done is they've cloned sections of the clouds and moved them down to cover the houses, so that you can't see the houses on the other side of the road. I think that's for privacy, because this is being broadcast on the BBC, I think. But what it does prove, again, is that a sophisticated editor can do a much better job of editing it than a non-sophisticated editor, which is what happened with the last lot of CCTV that we saw. So this proves stuff in a way, but it also doesn't, because it's been edited by a sophisticated editor. On top of that, I don't know why they've done it in that way. I mean, it looks better for the cinematic quality of their video, their TV program, but what I probably would have chosen to do is just block things out with a black bar, so you could see clearly this is unadulterated raw footage, just straight from them, put into our documentary. Yeah, unadulterated raw footage, and the things that need to be blocked out have just simply been blocked out simply. You know, that would have felt better to me, because whilst this might seem like a big answer to all the people who have questions about the CCTV, in other ways it's not, is it? Because it's just another piece of edited footage, but and we don't get to see it in its full run. But you know how I like to live in two different worlds. I like to say, well, like, this is the footage now, isn't it? This is the better footage. So this is what we should have been seeing all along, and I'll take it for granted this is the real CCTV from the day. I'll take it for granted that that's what it is. There's two different worlds there, though. There's the other world where in my brain I'm saying this is just far more sophisticated editing on this, prove that this, that and the other. And I was saying that if that's the police, if the CCTV have seen that CCTV that Jizzy showed us, and they haven't thought that that's fake, we've got problems, because it's clearly fake, yeah? So that was a problem. Like, we were showing CCTV that was fake. I'm saying fake, I mean edited, doctored, like, not a piece of evidence that could stand up in court. They didn't say the reason we're showing it you is to prove that Paul was there at the house, but that was the reason they were showing it to us, yeah? My question of did she leave the house that morning, you know, that was raised, I suppose early on as part of the questions that I had about the whole thing, but it was more, like, I was more certain that she didn't leave the house, because the CCTV didn't show her leaving the house, it showed like a fake video. So I was saying, if you need to fake a video, why is that? Well, no, and I say, wait, okay, so this is my problem now. This is my problem. I'm going to have to edit that now as well. You know, edit all this. That's not what I want to say, really. That's not what I want to say. I wasn't sure she'd not left the house, or not sure, or, you know, I don't know these things, do I? I'm like unsure about things. But my point is that my uncertainties were raised because the CCTV was fake. So I was saying, if you've got fake CCTV, either she hasn't left the house that morning and you needed to fake that she did, or Paul wasn't there on the drive and you needed to fake that he was, or, you know, some of this didn't happen and you needed to show that it did. So what bit didn't happen, and why are we showing that it did? And like this CCTV that we're seeing now, so this is like the second version, I'd call it, or maybe it's the original version, I don't know. And I can't confirm with the police that this is the version they saw. I'm assuming it is. I make assumptions all the time now. I don't know, I have to. But this is like the original, and then this was edited so that Jizzy could put something, or Jizzy edited this to put it on for whatever reason, but this is the original, yeah? So if this is the original, then of course this isn't edited, and it does prove that Nikki was there, yeah? Like, it does prove that Nikki was there. Insofar as the other one was edited, and this is the not edited one. This is the raw stuff, and the other one was edited from it. But I suppose it doesn't prove that it wasn't edited, because as I've said, it's clearly been edited, like, cosmetically edited. The clouds, very sophisticated as well, the way they've done that, but we can spot it. The bins are much better done. The blurring on the license plate is simple, and I don't know why they've blurred those things as well, because a black bar, that blur is not destructive in terms of, like, sophisticated technology can reverse engineer the blur, but it's only for the telly, isn't it? So it doesn't really matter. But the black bars are more destructive. Yeah. So does this now prove and qualify everything that I need proving and qualify? Or I need proving, but everything that we were looking for. Paul definitely didn't leave the house. Sorry, didn't leave the house. This is all facts. You've got all this Ring doorbell footage. Does it or not? Well, still no. Still no. Two reasons. One, it can be edited, and two, through the process of the Nicola Bulley investigation, whatever you want to call it, we learned that the Ring doorbell footage could, like, if I'm fairly confident on this, and I'm not showing you the evidence for it now, but I looked at other people's research, I guess I'd have to say, to suggest that Ring doorbell, you can go online to the cloud and you can download a video that's happened, and you can upload a video in its place. So it's possible that you could tamper with footage and then put it in the place, so that when the police come around, you say, look, there's the online cloud, search the doorbell footage, and they look at the doorbell footage online, see this, and say, well, that's proof then. But it might not be. It might need to be forensically checked to prove that it's actual proof, In terms of my eye for detail and saying, is this the original footage? Are there any more edits? I'm going to have to say I can't really tell. If there's any cut and shut behaviour on the, copy and pasting and cutting and shutting on the brickwork. This, it's much higher definition here, but it's obviously a much more sophisticated edit. There's still lots of problems that I saw before. That I guess, they could be real physical issues, like the bricks have this square pattern where they shouldn't have a square pattern sometimes. I believe from memory, well, I'm comparing it against fake footage, so it doesn't matter. This is the thing, comparing it against the other CCTV doesn't matter anymore, does it? It's not about a comparison, because the other one is definitely provably, like, they're proving it's been edited and doctored. They're proving I was right on this. I was right to say those things, because that was put in the public eye as proof of something, and it wasn't anything. It was definitely faked, messed about with. And also talking about copy of a copy, because Kelly made a really good point, saying how a copy of a copy gets degraded. Absolutely it does, which is why they should have just sent the original file to Jizzy, and she should have just uploaded the original file. Like, we don't have to copy and screen grab and screen record, especially if you're getting it from source. So at best, one copy being the original file sent to her goes into her editing software. She does some messing about with it, sends it out to render, and it'll be very, very high quality, wouldn't it, at the other end? Like, if I take an HD file and put it into my editing software and then pump it out the other end, it re-renders it, yeah, but it doesn't come out like a potato. It'll still be very high quality. Like, you might not be able to, with the naked eye, perceive much difference. And the level of quality difference, here we can actually see Paul's face and his ear. And like, we were concerned about what's going on with his ear, and it looks like he's just got a really big ear. But we can see it at least in more clarity. So then there's this confusion between the sound of the call and the sound of the Ring doorbell. The Ring doorbell's picking up the noise of the birds. Like, the Ring doorbell's picking up the children talking and the slam of the doors, I assume. And it's not a doorbell, I should say this, it's not a doorbell, it's a camera fitted at the apex of the roof of the garage, pointing in at the cars. And I assume they may have a doorbell as well fitted on the front, potentially, I don't know. Anyway, like, the sound is a mix of two sources here. And I saw a comment, someone questioning whether it was a 911 call or a 999 call because the audio of the dialing tone, the ring ring, I think this is either British ring ring, so I don't think that's the case, or they're just going to edit in their own ring ring sound, aren't they? That sounds good, because I don't know if all 999 calls record the dialing tone. You know, at the receiving end, I don't know if you hear that ring ring, and you know, I think it might just record from hello 999, how can we, you know, emergency, how can we help you? I don't know, so they might just edit that, so it might not be the real like, there's nothing on screen to say this is unadulterated recording of the 999 call, like. And it does this scene fade. So again, I don't know why they're not playing it as a little run. I don't know how long it takes. You know, we get scene fade. They're really editorially driving home the point that you haven't seen the kids much in this. Well, here they are, right front and centre straight away. You know, there's kids involved. Emotionally, they're going to be, you know what they're doing here. They're trying to pull the heartstrings, play up the particular side of things, make a compassionate appeal so that people get eggy with compassion about people talking about this stuff on the internet. You know, they're going to try and use people's love against them to make them angry, so that they can be angry about people talking about this stuff on the internet. And they're going to use the kids to do it a lot, and Nikki herself as well. The dog's wandering back in there at this point on its own, unattended. I'm a bit confused about what's going on here, you see, because we've seen one thing happen and then we don't know what's happening. Like, there's the gap in the time. So is the car completely open and unattended? Who's gone back inside? Did they go back inside together? Like, the kids and everyone, like, what's going on here? The dog's just wandering around it's popped back in on its own.
It's emergency.
Oh, hello, my partner.
And again, you can see a car over the road without a roof, completely cut off, you know, proving the editing, sorry. This is Nikki, I'm in the way here a little bit, but Nikki walking out of the corner here. She actually does appear to have a bit more of a nose in this one, I guess. It's a bit more of a slightly clear image. I should actually try and blow that up for you, I guess, because this is one of the famous images. BBC iPlayer won't give me frame by frame adjustment, so I won't be able to necessarily grab the exact frame. But this was, you know, the photograph that was put around, wasn't it? The darkness on her face considered to be questionable. The shape of her ears and stuff. You can see she's in motion, and there is a little bit of that sort of motion blur. But that's a slightly more clear version of the image that people have been questioning. And it doesn't do a lot to change the questions, I suppose. She looks very stern-faced, doesn't she? She looks a little bit more like Nikki with the detail in here, but the hairline doesn't sit right still. Maybe she's wearing her hair differently that day, you know. The tone of the hair doesn't quite sit right, but then maybe it's the colour on the CCTV. Cat's meowing again. But it does prove that that corner image was taken from a bigger frame that made up the entire CCTV. I'm not quite sold on the idea they moved the timestamp now. I think potentially you can fit this in this frame because the frame is slightly more widescreen than a standard video frame. So I'm going to have to let the cat in. She was meowing at me. But it does prove, like we were saying, that the previous CCTV is definitely a cut and shot of different. Like, it was zoomed in, it was cropped, it was cut, and these images have been cut from it and prove it. So
Coming at 8:30 to take my two
So now Nikki comes out alone with the dog.
children to school and the dog.
But Paul's already out there at this point. So again, like, I'm just going to, knock it back and watch it again. I don't know if this is chronological order, but it feels like it is because Paul's got the lead in his hand here. So he's going to deposit the lead in the car. So first of all, children come out and Paul comes out with them. And then we get this, I don't know why, we get this black fade out. Maybe it's just for time purposes. Maybe they mess about a bit more, but the lead is now in the car. No tennis ball, no water bottles, just the lead. And Paul is now at the side of the car, putting the kids in the car. He's still, I don't know if he's dressed or not. I think he's just wearing slippers and nightgown and, joggers. The dog is now out and running back to the house. I'm assuming the kids are in the car. Like, this door's open. Maybe Paul's on the other side of this door. Like, where's Paul at this stage? I don't know. Maybe he's on the other side of this door, doing something in the front of the car. Maybe one kid sits in the back and one sits in the front. I don't know.
It's emergency.
Oh, hello. My partner left this morning.
But out comes Nikki.
8:30.
Yeah, so Paul's there. There, isn't he? He's at the side of the car, putting the kids in the car. Let me check that again.
It's emergency.
I can't see him
My
yet.
partner left this morning at
Yeah, and he's half in the car and he backs out of the car apparently. Like, looking at this. Sorry, I'm gonna have to let the cat in.
8:30 to take my 2 children to school, and the dog went with her because we take the dog for a walk.
Right, okay.
She,
It looked like he might have said something to Nikki across the car there, but she didn't respond. Maybe.
I was getting concerned because she hadn't returned home by 9:30.
And then we cut away from that again. So, like, in terms of the CCTV, it's very hard to gain much more from it. Does it prove that Paul was there that morning? If you believe it, if you accept that is real CCTV that has not been doctored. Well, it's definitely been doctored, but the original hadn't been, and it was not uploaded or messed about with in advance. That it was, if that, then it does show that Paul was there when Nikki got in the car to take the kids to school. If you assume that's Nikki as well, like, from what we've seen, it's close enough to do it in court. If you're going to say that image that you saw of Nikki there definitely looks really exactly like her and that's her. I mean, it's convenient because obviously it's her driveway and stuff, so you're going to assume it's her, but like, if you think that's good enough, then video evidence of a picture of someone's face that you can see is good evidence, yeah? Even if it's not definitely detailed and put the two pictures together, you'd have to sort of squint a bit. Like, I mean, that's the CCTV, yeah?
Usually back by 9:30, so I thought she must have got chatting to somebody. I've been trying to ring her since about 10:30. No reply, and then the school's just...
I can happily live in both worlds as well. I can happily say that looks like convincing CCTV of her getting in the car there. It's more convincing now that I've seen it. This is what I can't understand. Like, we're gonna, as a human being, I'm a human being, and I don't know why anyone looked at that CCTV and said it was acceptable, like, that it should be edited in that way, and not like presented as such as well. The 999 call, which is the same piece of footage, just over the top of it. So I'll go again and review the 999 call. To finish on that CCTV though, yeah, like, my point is that they should have released the proper CCTV originally, and then there wouldn't have been all these questions. And releasing that dodgy CCTV caused all these questions. So I still have questions.
It was almost as if people didn't want to believe the police, didn't want to believe what we had to say.
The police say this is what it is.
Did I miss this bit? How did I miss this bit? And we just skipped. Yeah, sorry. Okay, so now focusing on the call, which is adulterated with background sound from other places and Foley's and stuff, but...
It's emergency.
Which emergency?
Oh, hello. My partner left this morning at 8:30 to take...
My partner left this morning at 8:30, and there is some discussion about the timelines, isn't there? There's some discussion about the timelines.
my 2 children to school, and the dog went with her because we take the dog for a walk.
And there is also a lot of analysis. I'm supposed to be analysing the call, aren't I, here? The dog went with her because we take the dog for a walk. People have been saying a lot that the choice of my children or our children or the children.
It's emergency.
Oh, hello. My partner left this morning at 8:30 to take my two...
So people are questioning this my two children to school rather than our two children or the children, and it's suggested that it shows knowledge that, like, for example, if Nicola's no longer alive, then they're your children because you're the sole responsible carer for them, potentially. I think that's what people are driving at and suggesting there. They're picking up on the fact that he says my two children rather than our two children or the children.
Two children to school, and the dog went with her.
And the dog went with her.
Because we take the dog for a walk.
And he sort of goes, and the dog went with her, and it's sort of, for me, it's almost like he's questioning that a little bit, or labouring that point a little bit.
Right.
I was getting concerned because she hadn't returned home by 9:30. She's usually back by 9:30, so I thought...
It's interesting that he says she, and then he switches to I was getting concerned. This is really interesting to me, okay? Bear with me, I'm going to have to keep rewinding and just playing and doing this way. Like, it's going to be a bit like this. So.
It's emergency.
Oh, hello. My partner left this morning at 8:30 to take my two children to school.
Yeah, I see in chat there as well, Des saying about the frost on the stuff, and yeah, like it looked a bit different, didn't it? And bless their hearts, absolutely. I'm going to be a bit more clinical in my analysis of this documentary than to get bogged down in the sentimentality of the feelings about the children's lives, which we have felt sentimental about and talked about, at times in the content, but I've been very careful to make sure to keep the children out of this, if you know what I mean. So I appreciate that, but do they release 999 calls there? Not really, I don't think. Not standard. You have to do a freedom of information request, I think.
And the dog went with her because we take the dog for a walk.
Because we take the dog for a walk. What I'm saying is that Paul's describing what she's done. It's like he's describing Nicola's, like, she's done this, and then she's done this, and then she's done this, and then she's done that. He switches to describing and I do this and I do that, and it's an interesting point that he switches. Look,
Right.
she. So the next thing that she did, we don't say. Instead, we start to come back to me and say, I was concerned.
It's emergency.
Oh, hello. My partner left this morning at 8:30 to take my two children to school, and the dog went with her because we take the dog for a walk.
Right.
She. Now, I don't know if this was a thought that he was going to have. She then did this, or didn't do this. Like, I don't know why he pauses in between. Says because it's quite easy to say she didn't come home, and I was getting concerned. But he goes she, and then he stops. It's like his mental train of thought is on what her process was. Her route. She's done this, and instead of saying she then went to walk the dog. Or like, how the story goes, she took the kids to school. He knows the story that how am I going to get my words out here? There's like the story that we all, Nicola Bulley went to walk, she left the house, she went to walk the dog, she walked up Garstang Road, she went down the thing, she got to the bench, she did the lap of the thing, she left that whole narrative. It's like he's telling that narrative up to this point when he says she, and he would have said, if he was telling that narrative, walked up the Garstang Road after school and then took the dog to the walk. But I suppose at this point he doesn't know that, does he? He doesn't know that. The school have called, so I suppose he can assume that she's dropped the kids at the school. Like, he can assume that because the school would have said, like, the kids are here. So he would assume that, yeah. But then after that he doesn't know. So that's where it breaks from she and her routine. So it comes back to him. But he starts to say she, and he could have said she didn't come home. But instead he says she, and we'll leave that. Instead we'll come back to me and say I was getting concerned because she hadn't come home. What she was doing at this point is now an unknown. Yeah. Like, I wonder what would have happened if he'd have carried on with that thought, whether he'd have said she didn't come home or she went to walk the dog, And why does that matter? Because whether he knew she went to walk the dog or not in advance would be like, if he said she went to walk the dog, she walked around the field, she left the phone on the bench and she's missing, like, then that would be acceptable at this point, I suppose, because he's been alerted by the school and they've told him details. So whether he remembers all those details and everything, but without that, you know, if he reveals any details that he's not supposed to know, then that would prove some sort of guilt, wouldn't it? Because he would know stuff that he doesn't know. But we're not going to go there, really. And I'm not saying he would have gone there. I'm not saying he would have said she walked the dog and went round and, you know, and then gone, oops, I said that. I'm saying that he started to see it from her eyes. He was seeing it through her eyes up to that point, and then he came back to himself. So it could be that's the point where he doesn't know anymore, or it could be that, you know, he was about to say something that she did, and instead he stopped and said she didn't come home at that point. That's the bit that, you know.
It's emergency.
Oh, hello.
Oh, hello. The other thing that's interesting, of course, it's been said a lot. I've already said it on the other, on my initial response to this, was that he doesn't sound panicked, does he? He doesn't sound like he's suffering with the anxiety or the panic that he describes that he was suffering with, like, you know, that feeling. Because just prior to this, you know, he's had the phone call from the school, and that has meant his stomach has dropped out, and it's like his legs have gone, and all that stuff he described. That's just happened to him, and now he's having this phone conversation. I don't really tend to hear that in his voice. You know, I don't hear much different from his. You know, they talk about bass lines and stuff with body language. Well, I don't see much different here to the way he talks in the interviews, the way he talks on the documentary. You know.
Partner left this morning at 8:30 to take my 2 children to school, and the dog went with her because we take the dog for a walk.
There was a little stress on partner. My partner. There was a bit of stress on partner.
It's emergency.
Oh, hello. My partner left this morning at 8:30 to take my 2 children to school, and the dog went with her because we take the dog for a walk.
It's interesting that he's pretty certain about the time that she left, isn't it? I wonder if at this point he'd reviewed the CCTV footage. I don't know why he would at this point, because he knows that she left because he'd remember it. But the 8:30 is pretty specific, isn't specific? But that would probably be routine, wouldn't it? She always leaves at 8:30. Maybe they check the clock, you know, maybe like most families, there's something on like the radio and, you know, said it's 8:30 and these, you know, okay, it's time everyone to leave because it's 8:30. It was actually 8:26. But
Right.
I was getting concerned because she hadn't returned home by 9:30. She's usually back by 9:30, so I thought she must have got chatting to somebody. I've been trying to ring her since about 10:30. No.
So I've been trying to ring her since about 10:30, and we get a more confusing timeline again, don't we? There is a timestamp. It's at the bottom right, and it's cut off by the frame of my my frame. The timeline is slightly inconsistent, isn't it? This is the COP report, and it reports that at 11:01 they received an emergency call from Paul Ansell. 11:01. You know, Paul's described his timeline in that other interview, and I'm not going to get it out and put all the different timelines together right now, but since about 10:30, he's vague in this phone call, but between 9:30 and 10, he sent text messages as well, didn't he? Have you got lost? And I think they started before 10:30. 10:30 was when the school was being contacted, wasn't it? I think. And then I think the school contacted him at 10:30, didn't they? So this doesn't quite sit consistently. What he's saying in the 999 call is different from what he says in the interviews. They're not consistent about when he rang the school. About when he rang the police and when the school rang him.
And the school's just
But it's inconsistent within an hour.
rung me to say that they've just found the dog. Somebody's found the dog.
So the school have rung me to say they've just found the dog, and that's not right. So he corrects himself because the school haven't found the dog. Someone's found the dog. And I suppose this is difficult, isn't it? You know what I'm like sometimes. You know, it's not about me, but you know, I'm like, I've got 3 things in my head, and I'm trying to, which order do I say them in? You know, I'm sure you felt like that. somebody's found the dog. That's the indicator, I suppose, that, you know, something's wrong. I'm finding this a little bit difficult, right? I'll tell you for why. I think that if you're ringing the police and your partner's missing, yeah, the first thing, maybe this is edited, and maybe he started with, "Hi, my name's Paul Ansell. My partner's missing. I need help from the police." You know, because it feels like we've gotten in right. So, you know, she went out for a morning and she's gone to school, and then I've had the phone call, and it's like we're driving towards the point of saying, "And I think she's missing." But you'd think that would come right at the start, and reminds me of his performance by the side of the river, where like we're sort of sitting there on tenterhooks waiting for him to say, "Nikki, if you're out there, can you come home?" And he never does. Like, you know, where's the statement here that my partner's missing and I'm worried about her? It is out of the ordinary. I need the police. I think something's gone seriously wrong. And then they would probably I think I'd lead with that, yeah, and then like leave a little pause for them to say, okay, you know, next thing they'd probably want my address, or, you know, where I am, or, you know, maybe they'd ask another question. What leads you to think, is it out of character? You know, stuff like that. And I'd start responding. Do you know what I mean? I'd start filling in the blanks for whatever they want. My initial thing would be to tell them at top priority what the problem is and where I need to get them. You know, can you send I'd probably tell them my address straight away. You know, like, I'm at this address and my wife's gone missing. Can you send? You know what I mean? Big up Smee Green. I'm saying it's just the order of descriptive language about the process. It's all like, I guess my concern is that it feels like Paul has thought out the whole step-by-step process here of what Nikki's been doing, and has got that in his head, like the sort of timeline without the times attached to it, obviously, because he's got those slightly wrong, but, you know, the timeline of events, like he's thought that all through. So he's delivering that instead of like, in a world where I'm worried about Paul Ansell's guilt, I would say, why does a spouse of a missing loved one not sort of quote their anxiety to the police? I'm really worried about my wife, she's missing. That would be my like the thing I'd say first. But if, like, and he's in this documentary we'll come to see, he seems to be quite worried about himself throughout the process of the search, and how he's being perceived in the media and stuff like that. So again, this feels like, you know, the first thing that's being described here is the sort of evidentiary facts that point away from any, you know, she left the house. He doesn't say I've got that on CCTV, but like, he's like, you know, she's gone from the house. It's not me. She's out there on the dog walk. These are the pieces of evidence that prove she's on the dog walk. She's been seen. The school are the ones that have called me. Like, it's like everything's like just like pointing away. And eventually we're going to get to the point where we say, and I think she's missing and I need help from the police, you know? But I can't guarantee that because this is probably heavily edited now. Like,
It's emergency.
Oh, hello. My partner left this morning at 8:30 to take my two children to school, and the dog went with her because we take the dog for a walk.
Right, okay.
I was getting concerned because she hadn't returned home by 9:30. She's usually back by 9:30, so I thought she must have got chatting to somebody. I've been trying to ring her since about 10:30. No reply. And then the school's just rung me to say that they've just found the dog. Somebody's found the dog, and my partner's put her phone down on a bench and the dog lead, and she's nowhere to be seen.
The 45-year-old woman who...
So I didn't pay enough attention there. Did he say she went missing?
So I thought she must have got...
I will concede as well that this CCTV, like, I wish they'd just released this CCTV earlier. Like, would I have critiqued this in the same way as the other CCTV? Not as heavily, no. We could still ask the same questions. Could this be doctored? Could it have been produced and uploaded to the cloud? And, you know, does it prove innocence in the way that a casual look across it might seem? You know, we could still ask those questions, but I probably wouldn't have done the same critical analysis. Well, I wouldn't have been able to do the same critical analysis because the same flaws in the CCTV wouldn't have existed, would they? So, yeah, a bit of give and take there.
It's emergency.
Oh, hello. My partner left this morning at 8:30 to take my 2 children to school, and the dog went with her because we take the dogs for a walk.
Okay.
I was getting concerned because she hadn't returned home by 9:30. She's usually back by 9:30, so I thought she must have got chatting to somebody. I've been trying to ring her since about 10:30.
He says, I've been getting concerned. He hasn't, in his own description of it, he was getting quite worried. Like, concerned is fair, I suppose, concerned. Yeah.
No reply, and then the school's just rung me to say that they've just found the dog. Somebody's found the dog, and my partner's
He stresses dog twice there.
put her phone down on a bench, and the dog...
And he does say, and my partner's put her phone down on a bench. He states this. His partner has put the phone her phone down on a bench. And the dog lead, and she's nowhere to be seen. Now, there's a difference between her phone has been found on a bench and my partner's put her phone down on a bench. And he does say my partner a lot, doesn't he? I suppose you might get used to saying it. And the dog lead, and she's nowhere to be seen.
She's nowhere to be seen.
And she's nowhere to be seen. Hello, police. Yeah, I'm concerned my partner's missing. She was last seen at this time. It's really out of character. Her possessions are by the side of the river. Can I get also that bit about mental... I mean, they've cut all the bit about mental health and stuff as well, haven't they? That's not the whole conversation, so maybe I'm missing bits, Maybe I'm missing bits. Again, in an effort to, make an interesting documentary, they've done a good job, but in an effort to shine light on the truth, it makes it another, there's more... I guess, like I said, I can't analyse the body language too strong because, it's been edited heavy. Maybe I can't analyse this too strong because it's been edited heavy.
The 45-year-old woman who vanished while walking her dog along the river was last seen on Friday.
Was last seen on a footpath by the...
These images taken by the mainstream press, these will all be off Getty Images or something like that, won't they? It's not stock photography, but the documentary makers didn't go and shoot this. They didn't recreate this, but these are good quality images of the search. And this is midway, like we're like a week into the search in these images, aren't we? This is like an opening sequence, so fair enough. But in terms of chronological order and understanding what's happening, we're just out of order, out of sync here.
What has happened to Nikki?
Loads of things from... I always have this question. I always have this question with my own feelings. Is when I'm taking screenshots of the media to put into my videos, do I leave the adverts on the right hand side and that stuff? And quite often I'll edit those off. I'll take them off, but they've left them on here. Just a little thought.
Bully.
The search for her made global headlines. Well, sort of. It wasn't really an international story, was it? But
I remember thinking at the time, how is this so big?
There's the bench.
What on earth is going on?
So now we're straight into the well, would I call this a TikToker? I suppose it is a TikToker. It looks like someone just taking a video on their phone, so I don't know, whether this is a... It says gem at the bottom. I suppose that is a TikToker, isn't it?
Going on?
I don't understand how she can go missing.
Just can't stop thinking about it. Like, where is she?
It was almost...
So we've just seen a load of really quite, normal people just talking into their phones like, oh, I can't understand. That makes sense, doesn't it? The nation was gripped. Her disappearance became a social media sensation.
As if people didn't want to believe the police, didn't want to believe what we had to say.
And we're given the, at the start of the documentary, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be setting a tone. We're going to be not seeding ideas in the bad sense, like, they got you and they've seeded an idea and now you think the same as them. But that's sort of like, we're going to be asking a question, setting a tone, because we're going to go on to explore these themes, yeah? So first of all, we've had sympathy for the family. It's just another family like everyone else. We've seen the actual video of the CCTV, so it's quite, I think, a clever thing to start with. It gets everyone's attention, plus all the people that have been watching on the internet are going to be saying, oh, that's the original CCTV, so I'll have a good look at that. It's going to get everyone's attention, and it is literally the start point of the story. And then we move to the police, and she's saying that people didn't believe the police. So we're questioning people's faith in the police, in the narrative. We're questioning, we've brought up social media straight away. We can see what we're going to be talking about here, can't you?
police say this is what it is, it's almost like a parent saying, because I said so.
Jizzy is explaining that she sees the police like parents telling her off, and so the rebel in her, I suppose, doesn't want to accept authority and questions them, which is a perspective, I suppose. It's a perspective. That's not exactly how I felt. Not at all. The way I felt is nothing to do with, like, you know, the police telling me what to think and feel, to be honest. I didn't feel they kind of did, really. I didn't feel, you know, that really happened over the course of it. I just felt there wasn't enough information, and the information that we were being given, I say we were being given, that was out there, didn't... well, for a start, she wasn't found in the river. You know, I'm not talking about on the 24th day, I'm talking about at the start of this, you know. The lack of evidence to support any theory was quite interesting, wasn't it? Because usually you'd think there would be some evidence to support, you know, like, that got people questioning. It wasn't, so basically what I'm saying is it was nothing to do with the police telling me I couldn't think about it. It was because I just had thoughts, yeah.
Social media is going to take that and kick against it really strongly.
Social media didn't kick against the police really strongly, telling them what to do initially. I don't think. I don't know about initially. I mean, we're at the start of the story here, but generally, I don't feel that was right. It was the mainstream media who were telling people that there were YouTube ghouls and TikTok ghouls. That was the mainstream media doing that. It wasn't the police.
It makes no sense. It makes no sense.
She was the glue for the family.
Yeah.
She was the glue.
No.
That's what we kept saying to ourselves. She would never have gone off on her own.
We were absolutely worried sick because it was just...
So these are just little sound bites.
Social media is going to take that and kick against it really strongly. It makes no sense. It makes no sense.
These were the sound bites, right? So
she was the glue for the family.
Yeah.
She was the glue.
So it's important to, you know, say these positive things about Nikki, of course, isn't it? But here we get this. They're setting up. This is weird because I know that I'm going to break this up into lots of different episodes, aren't I? But we're setting up the framework for later, where we're going to say the reason the family had the same thoughts as the YouTubers and the. I want to talk about YouTubers. I'm not a TikToker, but like the TikTok ghouls or whomever, you know, the normal people. The reason that the family thought the same thing is because they're also normal people, maybe. Or maybe they were whipped up by social media as well, which they didn't have to look at. Or maybe they had other ideas from their own, you know, knowledge and thoughts. I don't know, but for some reason, the family themselves didn't think that Nikki had gone off, had done this, like, you know, the same as everyone else. Yeah, they had the same thoughts.
No.
That's what we kept saying to ourselves. She would never have gone off on her own.
We were absolutely worried sick because it was just...
When I say the family, you know, I've said this before, I always thought it was strange that they kept referring to the family in the media as the family, but Paul Ansell wasn't married to her, so, like, legally, you know, I don't know what the word family legally in the press or anything like this, or, you know, whatever, but also when they did the like, you know what I mean, like legally, I don't know, like, because he wasn't legally married to her or anything, but when they did these interviews, they had the family, and they would call them the family, yeah, which would be the mother, the father, and her sister here. They were also pictured by the river as the family, and then Paul would come along separately and be called Paul Ansell, like as a separate entity in different pieces. So my confusion is whether Paul Ansell was always lumped in with the family when they generically say the family, because sometimes when they said the family, they were referring to the family without Paul Ansell, like we're interviewing the family for Sky News and Paul Ansell wasn't there. Yeah, so they don't mean Paul Ansell when they say the family then. So I was just a bit confused as to, you know, this idea about the family in general, including Paul. For me, when I say it, I mean her relatives. That's what I mean.
There's nothing we could do other than wait.
Anything that builds the hope up, you grab it with both hands.
I don't think she's here. I think that...
So now they're saying, like, this is just quick in the edit at the start, isn't it? This is the overview for the whole film, so, you know, I shouldn't be too deep here because we're going to dig over these things again later on, like Peter Folding did. But now we're basically saying Peter Folding came in and offered them false hope, but that's unfair on Peter Folding because, as we saw from Emma's interviews, she found him on the internet and brought him in to offer them false hope. So like, that's on them. It's not Peter Folding's fault that he did what they came. Like, they didn't employ him, they didn't give him any money, but they looked at him on the internet and thought, this is a man I would like to come in and do what he does. And if they'd looked a bit harder, they'd have seen what we all saw, wouldn't they? So that's on them. And, you know, what Peter Folding was doing there still remains a little bit under a cloud, doesn't it? We'll get to that later.
There's probably a third party involved.
I always expected, like, Nikki to
Tell you what was really interesting. I'll tell you what's really interesting.
She would never have gone off on her own.
We were absolutely worried sick because it was just. There's nothing we could do.
She's very still in this one, isn't she? She's very still in this one, and he's doing this. This is reminiscent of McCann's, like, not in a bad way, but he's letting her talk, but he's keeping an eye on her. Like, you know, she's doing the talking here, but he's very aware, but he's not looking at her face on like that, like watching her while she talks. So he's just looking across, and it's like out the side of his eye. You know, he's keeping an eye on her. That could be for different reasons. It could be very positive. You know, he could be worried about her and protective. So he might be thinking she's going to be upset, so he needs to keep an eye on her. You know, but Jerry McCann and Kate, they used to do that to each other when they were in their interviews. It's just something that I remember. I'm not saying these are the McCanns by any means, but that's what they used to do in their interviews, is like side eye on, just keeping an eye on each other's behaviour.
White.
Anything that builds the hope up, you grab it with both hands.
But then, you know, again, I can't really say that because that was such a short clip. You know, I can't really say that. It's just from that still, you might say it.
I don't think she's here.
This is what I wanted to pick up on. It's just a little bit of a fun one. And actually, you will need this, won't you? This Firefox. There you go. Look, this is from Carla Marie, at Carla Marie 792 apparently. Well, it's not. It's from the ITV News. So they've also credited ITV News on this, which I'm a bit confused. Their crediting system, an @ handle usually is a TikToker, except when it's me, I get an @ handle as well, and I'm a YouTuber. But ITV News just get a sort of thing there. Or does she mean it's at Carla Marie and the video is called ITV News? I don't know. But isn't this ITV News' footage filmed off a phone, like on the telly? Like, it's literally her lounge, and she's filmed it, like, you know, with the phone. So what surprises me about this is the way they've chosen to take Carla Marie's footage from ITV News like this and credit her with it, instead of just the ITV News footage. So this is a definite choice as well, isn't it? Like, to show this sort of TikToker angle.
I think there's probably a third party involved.
I always expected, like, Nikki to
And
be
that's
walking.
Peter Folding saying he thinks there's a third party involved on the mainstream news, having been there and been part of it all, and, you know, brought in by these people. So if any of us on the social media thought there was a third party involved, none of us are really to fault here, are we? Because the people that are involved in the search for her have said that that's what they think. Like, Paul Ansell, represented by Peter Folding effectively, isn't he? Like, having Peter Folding talk to him back and forth, relaying these things, employing him. Employing him is a big word, but, you know, not with money, but, you know, asking him to come to be his, you know, I think represented by Peter Folding is a fair point, because I would see them as part of the same team, yeah? Because Peter kept saying about how much he was talking to Paul and how upset Paul was. So Peter Folding said
that's what we kept saying to ourselves.
They don't think she's run off. They don't think it. Yeah, they don't think she's just run off. And to allude to also, you know, the bad thing, you know, doing herself, unaliving or whatever we have to say, you know, they don't think it. Paul's brought in someone that he doesn't think it, Paul doesn't think it, we don't think it.
She would never have gone off on her own.
We were absolutely worried sick because it was just, there's nothing we could do other than wait.
Anything that builds the hope up, you grab.
Do you know what? The only people who did think it are the police, aren't they? Because Paul made them think it by saying that she's got mental health problems and she's on the menopause and she's disappeared and she's by the river. So that got the police down there pretty sharpish, didn't it? So they thought it based on what Paul had told them. But then immediately after they arrive on the scene, Paul is not going to accept that what he told them is what he thinks happened. Am I saying this right? He's then saying that you need hope and you grab it with both hands and Maybe, you know, the day they search she wasn't in the river, then he starts to think that she's not there. Maybe initially he thinks she is there. No, he says he doesn't want to believe she's there. He wouldn't look in the river. He went looking around the bushes. He doesn't think she's in the river initially, does he? But he makes the police think that, so they'll come down quickly. You getting me? This is right, isn't it? I'm getting this right, yeah? Paul Ansell gave the police the impression that Nicola Bulley had committed unaliving so that they would act quickly and search the river and be like, the police would be on that river thing. Yeah. But he himself didn't believe that's what had happened. Am I saying that right? Yeah, because that he doesn't want to. Is it not that he doesn't want to believe it? He's in denial. But at this stage, does he deep down believe it? That's why he's told the police. But he's telling us, and he has told us in previous interviews, that he didn't want to think she's in the river. Not just didn't want to. You know, this is a funny one. You know, didn't want to might mean I did think it, but I didn't. But like, if you were turned up there and you're looking for her and you cared, you thought she might be, like, even though I don't want it to be, I would still check the river. You know what I mean? Like, but he was checking the bushes and other such things. And he says here categorically, you know, any other option, he was down that road, any other option. So, yeah, I feel like he's told the police that he thinks one thing, but deep down in his heart, whether it's denial or he just doesn't think it, his behaviour says otherwise. Yeah, he's told the police he thinks she might be at risk of... I don't think he used those words. I don't know if he used those words. But the way he built it up to get them there quick, definitely the police thought she's in that river, yeah? But then he's against the police all of a sudden. No, she's not in the river. I won't accept it. I don't think that's what's happened. So Paul doesn't think she's really gone in the river, but he's made the police think that she has so that they can act quickly. That's interesting. That's interesting. I'll tell you for why. Because if something else had happened to her and you didn't want to tell the police what it is, but you needed to get them there quick, you know, that's an option in my mind. We're talking about trying to just find, you know, the truth, I guess. I'm allowed to have my thoughts. It doesn't mean I'm a hurtful, nasty person. It doesn't. It doesn't at all. I think there could be reasons that you'd want the police on the scene to help, but you wouldn't want to tell them why they were helping necessarily or what the root cause of the problem was. There are reasons. And I could list them, and it wouldn't, you know, you could clip me and put me in the BBC, but it wouldn't make me a bad person. For example, he could have murdered her. What? Why would you want the police down on the scene to help? Because the decoy theory and all this other stuff, you know, get them all busy doing something. He could know what, you know, she could have been taken by somebody bad. And he could know and he could want her back, but he doesn't want to tell the police things because then they'll do bad things because, you know, it could be a ransom situation. It's a bit like the films, isn't it, this? Oh, it's wild conjecture. But there are reasons why Paul's account would add up and make sense. That he got the police on the scene with... essentially, I don't want to say a lie, but he brewed that story heavy to say that she was definitely vulnerable and she got the menopause and, you know, really worried about, you know, and the stuff's by the river. But deep down, he told us all the way along he didn't believe that story and that he just used it to get the police there. So that's, you know, going on his account. And this is the problem I have, is that I don't want to defend myself over this because I don't think I need to, but, you know, make me look bad, but I'm going on what I'm seeing. I'm reacting to Paul's account. I'm analysing it, breaking it down, just giving you what it sort of says to me in terms of human behaviour, and then, you know, that's that. Just is what it is.
But with both hands.
I don't think she's here.
Yeah, good point, me and Green. I'm, you know, I'm beyond defending myself for that silliness, but I'm aware of when I'm saying it now, people have already made that point, so, you know, I'm sort of building in the sort of defence there, but I guess I feel defensive because I'm a human being, huh? But yeah.
Yeah, I think
that's what human beings are like, aren't they? They can feel a bit, you know, vulnerable and maybe a little bit defensive, so... Anyway, back to this, yeah.
There's probably a third party involved.
I always expected, like, Nikki to come walking through the door. I expected it to be just a horrendous nightmare that we were 100% going to wake up from at any minute.
Like, that's much better than saying it was a dream, like you said, when you were by the river.
Anything that builds the hope up, you grab it with both hands.
I don't think she's here. I think there's probably a third party involved.
I always expected, like...
I always expected, like, and he says this shaking his head. This is a little bit of body language read, but I'm just going to do it. You know, he says it's shaking his head. We're looking into kinesthetic, examining feelings, I think. Hang on. Let me just check that to make sure I'm getting it right. As always, you know, NLP eyes are not always kinesthetic memories of feelings. How he felt about things, how he was feeling.
Nikki to come walking through the door.
And then we drift into constructed auditory, which is sort of like, if you're asking someone, are they telling the truth, and you're looking at them in the eyes, and you want to go with the NLP eyes, you don't have to, because the NLP eyes are sort of not debunked, but put on the back burner behind more modern body language theory about collections of movements, all sorts of different things, yeah? But here we are veering into constructed auditory, and if you're looking into remembered auditory or remembered visual, that's good, but constructed auditory is like thinking about how things might have sounded, like maybe how you might sound when you say them, things like that.
I expected it to be just a horrendous night.
And he's veering between constructed auditory and kinesthetic. Sounds. It's a weird one. Sounds. Maybe when Nikki came through the door, you know, she used to drop her keys or like say something, and he's sort of constructing that memory in his mind because she didn't come back that day, so he had to construct what it would be like if she had come through the door. You know, it might not mean guilt, but like remembered auditory or remembered visual or stuff like that would have been remembering how he, you know, remembering something that happened. But then this didn't happen, did it? She didn't come home, so I don't know.
Worried sick because it was just, there's nothing we could do other than wait.
Anything that builds the hope up, you grab it with both hands.
Do you know what? This is really difficult because every time I skip back, I'm skipping back by like 20 seconds because of this thing, and usually I'd only skip back a little bit. I wonder if it's got. No, it hasn't got very much like detailed controls. I can only go in the bigger chunks. Sorry about this.
It's here. I think there's probably a third party involved.
Maybe for the future analysis, I will get it on YouTube and just use the YouTube controls. But we're all right. We're halfway through. We're 1 minute 50 through of what I intend to be a 10-minute segment. So.
Is expected like Nikki to come walking through the door.
And he does that little rise of the eyebrows as well, like a little surprise.
I expected it to be just a horrendous nightmare. That
there's a little shake of the head, like he didn't want to go there. Which could be the stress, you know, remembering the stress of it all. It could, you know, I'm giving him a real fair crack at the whip here now, a real fair crack at the whip. It could be that he's remembering the stress of it and he doesn't want to go there, you know.
100% gonna wake up from.
We were 100%. We were 100%. We were 100% going to wake up. He was sure that we were 100% going to wake up at any minute. Concern for me here, textual analysis, statement analysis, whatever you want. Yeah. One of my concerns is that Nicola Bulley was in some way sedated, specifically injected with propanol. Is one of my concerns. And the way he's talking here, linguistically, you could argue that he's saying about he was 100% sure that we were going to wake up from this nightmare. I would have said, you want to pair that up with a theory I've got? Well, like, he might have been 100% sure this wasn't going to go wrong and Nikki was going to wake up, you know, a little bit later. And it does concern me, you know, because it could have been something went wrong and she didn't wake up. It's just a thought based on what he's saying here about we were going to wake up from it at any minute. The we is a, you know, it's not I was going to wake up from it, it's we. So
through the door.
I can skip a little bit with the little button here. Hang on. I always expected, like, Nikki to come walking through the door. I expected it to be a horrendous nightmare.
Did it to be just a horrendous nightmare?
And that's interesting as well, isn't it? Like, I expected it to be I expected her just to come through the door. I expected it to be a horrendous nightmare. What, the process of her being missing? Yeah, or like, I expected it was I expected it to be a nightmare. Not like I hoped it was a nightmare. Like, I expected it to be a nightmare. So if you were planning something that was bad, and you knew it was going to be bad, you expected it to be bad. But I didn't expect that this was going to be a nightmare, because this is a bad surprise. Like, from the moment she went missing, I was shocked that I was living this horrendous nightmare. I wasn't expecting, I suppose from the moment she went missing, I was expecting that every moment following that was going to be horrendous. I was expecting her to just turn up. Actually, he said, didn't he? So he wasn't it's like this just contradiction. There's contradiction. There's definitely contradiction. And this is Paul Ansel all over, isn't it? All of his interviews start contradicting each other in subtle ways. I expected her to come walking through the door. So I'm telling you, I expected her to come walking through the door. Yeah, so my expectations were, I was living in this great hope I expected just any minute she was going to come walking through the door and I was going to feel happy again and everything's going to be fine. That was my expectation. It was going to be fine.
Through the door.
I expected it to be just a horrendous nightmare. Well, a horrendous nightmare is her don't come back and it's awful for ages. Yeah? You mean, I was hoping it's weird, the choice of language. I expected that it would be a horrendous nightmare because when she walks through the door, the horrendous nightmare is over. So I was living a horrendous nightmare, but expecting it to end. There's difference there. I expected it to be a horrendous nightmare. It would be like, I saw this coming. I expected when she got in the car and went off, she wasn't coming home and it was going to be a horrendous nightmare for the next 9 months because she's never coming back. I expected it. Like, that makes more sense if he was aware that she was never coming home. But he said both things. He said, I assumed she was coming back. I expected it to be a horrendous nightmare. Yeah, I'm not happy with that.
Expected it to be just a horrendous nightmare that we were 100%.
And then it's we that are going to wake up. So now we've brought Nikki into the idea that she's going to wake up. Because we're talking about Nikki. Or is he talking about the family? Is all the family just going to wake up from their nightmare? Because at the start he was talking about Nikki. He said, Nikki's gone... Like this... This is why we need the full... No, I'd rather see the unedited versions, but, I always expected, like, Nikki to come walking through the door.
Through the door. I expected it
to be a horrendous nightmare.
To be just a horrendous nightmare that we were
going to 100% wake up from. So in the conversational, like, the juggling balls up in the air, the conversational, who's mentioned in the sentence, like, I wonder if Peter, what's his name, shouts out Peter Hyatt statement analysis thing. He's good. I watched him on the McCann stuff. I wonder if he's got anything to say about the fact that Nikki was in the sentence, Paul's in the sentence, now it's we. Does that mean the family? I can't say it means the family, I can't say it means this, but it's troubling to me that now we are going to 100% wake up, and he was sure we were going to wake up. If you said she there instead of we, I was sure she was going to wake up at any minute. That would be really bad, wouldn't it? And it's only a little bit of a mix-up of a pronoun. Is it a pronoun or a preposition, or it's only a mix-up of one little word that means us, she, me, I. We've gone from me to we instead of she, of course. Maybe it means the family. Maybe it means him and Nikki. And the concept of 100% sure they're going to wake up from it as well. Like, it does make sense, like I said, if you were to say this was a living nightmare and I was 100%, as I've just explained.
Can you actually just start by just telling me who you are?
Okay, so again, and I'm going to be, maybe these episodes are going to be less than 10 minutes of this for one of these episodes, because how long have we been rolling now? There's something I want to say here, though, as well. I really want to say this. This is why we should see the reels. I mean, we've got no right to see the reels and this and that, but like, I'm so jealous of the reels. I want the reels. Search for Nicola Bulley. I don't care about the graphic and the water. Okay, it's a nice graphic and a bit of water. Yeah. Like, and we could talk about the choice of music and the serious tone and the dun 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 and all this. The darkness of the water and the emotion that it carries. But this, and I've paused it just at the moment. Most people who are in an interview assume things are going to get cut from the interview, and they assume that the bit when the lady says, "You're right, how's it going?" Like, that's going to get cut from the interview, yeah? And when she says, "What's your name?" Like, he knows that she knows her name, They've introduced each other before. Usually in an interview, you say some chit chat so that you can get them talking to test the mic. And if you do it, like my friend says, "What have you had for breakfast?" And they always look confused a little bit. And like they will talk. You know, for breakfast I've had well, me personally, I've had a slice of pizza because I had pizza yesterday. And I didn't eat it all. And like, you know, you're talking, you can test the mic and all that, and it gets you relaxed a little bit. So this feels like that moment. And Paul feels to me like it feels to me like Paul assumes this will not be on the final edit. Like this won't be in it. Do you know what I mean? Like he's less likely to be playing a role. Although as soon as they've said action, we're rolling, you know, the cameras are rolling, I think he would think, shit, okay, the cameras are rolling. But, you know, this whole idea that he has thought more carefully about what to say. And, you know, when the cameras are on, he's going to perform his role a little better in terms of the... not in terms of like the conspiracy that people are all actors, but in terms of like, you know, the loving partner who's missing that, you know, and all that. But this is a scene where, or a moment, and it might be, I'm being naive, maybe they said to him, hey, we're going to put this in at the start, make you look really human. So we just want to sort of like, you know, behind the scenes sort of shot. So you're going to say, my name's Paul, but this is definitely going to get in the documentary. So make sure you smile, you know, or don't smile, whichever's most appropriate. Because look.
You comfortable, Paul?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Very confident, that is. That's very confident. That's not the smile of someone who's nervous, to me. Although he is picking up these bands, picking up these things on his hand, these wristbands, these bracelets that he wears. But to me, that's confidence. He tilts his head back, he gives her a beaming smile. It resonates in his eyes. I think he does feel comfortable. I think he probably does feel comfortable, knowing that the team, like, there's no way he sat down here to do this without feeling comfortable in previous, you know, through consultation with them, maybe seeing ideas about where they're going with the documentary, talking it through. I don't believe that people in documentaries gain editorial control. I don't think he's able to go in the edit and say, cut that, put that in. I don't like this, but maybe they've said to him, if there's anything you don't like in it, we'll change it. You know, maybe they've made him feel comfortable with that, given, because sometimes you could give them a final pass in terms of, like, you're not going to be in the process editing it, but if you watch the final thing and you've got a problem with anything, come to us and discuss it. You know, we can talk about it. You know, maybe that's the case. So he does feel, you know, maybe he feels a lot more comfortable here than he has done before. Because this process is not going to be, you know, unlike the other interviews where he might have felt slightly hijacked or, well, not in the Channel 5 one, I don't think, actually. You know, maybe should have felt comfortable there, I guess. But, you know, this is a controlled environment, isn't it, with friends who are helping him to put his side of the story across. So I should believe he should feel comfortable, yes. Very happy and confident about it, he is too.
Can you actually just start by just telling me who you are?
And this is good.
Can you actually just start by just telling me...
He licks his lips here, like licks his teeth. I think this is like internally just like, I don't think this is body language in terms, like you could say he's probing in his mouth for, you know, things to say or stuff like that. I think he's just like a little bit vain, like most of us are, and thinks, I'm about to be on camera, I'm just going to lick my teeth and check there's nothing stuck in my teeth. You know, he just did the big smile. I think he's just licking his teeth, like just preparing for his moment on camera here while she does the question. Because this bit's going to get cut because she's asking the question. You know, mentally, you're not feeling like it's on time. You're feeling like this is the bit before, okay, and then it's on time, yeah? But the question she asks is a bit of a random, again, this is the interviewer, the producer, maybe just getting the mic check. Maybe also, we do this when, because I have shot documentary stuff, yeah? It is a good idea, doesn't matter who you're filming, to always get this at the start, because in the edit you might want them to say, hi, my name's Paul. You might not want someone to say, this is Emma. You might want Emma to say, my name's Emma. So you just get everyone to say your name. Can you tell us who you are? Like, it's just a really good start point, just so you've got it in the edit in case you need that. But to the interviewee, like, you kind of feel like, what? Like, hey, because like, you know who I am, but I get it, it's for telly, so I'll just say my name, you know, like I'm in an interview. But it throws you off initially, like as an interviewee, you're like, yeah, my name is, and like, it's weird because it's your name, but the first thought is, what? Like, why am I being asked this? I thought we were going to talk about this other stuff. Isn't this a banal question? How come? And then you sort of clock in your mind, like, you know, it's an interview. I'm giving my name at the start, and you give your name. So the body language here.
Who you are.
You tell me who you are. He's like, and he looks over, like there's that moment of, like I said, like, and he looks straight into remembered sound. The sound of his own name. The sound of someone saying his name. But proper memory, like, you know, again, if you want to not lean heavily on NLP, that's your prerogative. Just a bit of fun, yeah? But properly, like what you would say for good body language. Like, this is a baseline, you could almost call it, isn't it? Him remembering what his name is. We don't get to see much of it. But at least there, his shoulders are relaxed. His head is slightly tilted. He's thinking about his own name. Feels relaxed and calm. Yeah. And then we cut to this, where he looks a lot more starey. A lot more starey than he did a minute ago. Definitely got, like, you know, maybe it's because it's dark. A lot more starey. And they're at some sort of event. Maybe it is actually Tom Jones himself, I don't know. Lively music plays. Well, Tom Jones plays, doesn't it? And there's Nikki and Paul enjoying themselves. She doesn't look to have a big smile on, and he is not smiling.
And Paul.
And then the expression happens. They both make the smile there now. But initially when it was switched on, they weren't necessarily smiling.
Nikki's partner.
But that's a bit like it, isn't it, though? You know, when you get the camera on, you do your smile. Is that... I mean, Nikki's, I can say, is a smile. God rest her soul. Paul's... Nikki's partner. Paul is Nikki's partner. And there he is, smiling, happy to be with her. At the Tom Jones.
We were together 11 years.
The camera now swings. Nikki points it at herself, I believe. Or maybe he points it at her, I don't know. But she appears to be smiling. But again, I will body language this a little bit. Sometimes there's a smile, but it's not in the eyes. You know? And this looks like one of those smiles, bless her. I don't know why, but... you know, like, I think smiling is appropriate at this moment, but it just doesn't quite seem to light up in her eyes. Maybe she doesn't like Tom Jones as much as Paul does. Footage of the girls, again, I can't prevent this now. This is in the documentary, but, you know, I wouldn't normally want to put this on my channel, you know.
Two beautiful girls together. Things were pretty great.
And Paul Ansley's edited over that, saying we had two wonderful girls together. Things were... pause, pretty great. So I don't know if that's edited together, like things were cut pretty great from somewhere else. You know, I don't know how, you know, we can't see his body language, but we can hear the pause. Things were pretty great. That's not strong and confident, like things were wonderful. You know, I had this wonderful life. Pretty great. Pause, pretty great. And I'll play it one more time, but I'm not going to labour over this one because it comes with the images of the children. So,
Can you actually just start by just telling me who you are?
I'm Paul, Nikki's partner. We were together 11 years. We have two beautiful girls together. Things were pretty great. And
that was a confusing collection of tenses, wasn't it? We have two girls together. Things were pretty great. Maybe it's because he's talking about the past, you know. I'm sure textually, you know, you could look at that and say things were pretty great. Doesn't sound as strong and confident. But we'll move forward.
The Friday morning was normal as any other, really.
No, it wasn't, Paul. No, it wasn't. That Friday morning wasn't as normal as any other. She had everything ready. It was calm and quiet. Normally it's carnage. But this time, everything was slightly different. Don't you remember? I am going to get the interview out for that, actually. I I think I am going to get the interview out for that, because like I feel it's really weird that Paul should seem to get this wrong. Um,
2 weeks.
So the only difference that morning was, you know, usually, you know, when you've got children, getting up on a school day, you know, you probably know yourself, it's just mayhem, isn't it?
Carnage, yeah.
Yeah, absolute carnage. So the only difference on that morning 2 weeks ago was that there wasn't a lot of rushing. I came down and a lot of stuff was already done. It was, you know, the girls were having a breakfast and everything was pretty much ready to go. I came down, Nikki went upstairs to get ready. And then, you know, the routine is basically if Nikki's taking the girls and Willow, when I hear her come down, I'll get them in the car.
Yep.
Get them strapped in. Get Willow in the boot and all that.
Well, you didn't put Willow in the boot.
And
or at least she came out the boot and just came back in the house, like if you ever did. We didn't see it fully in the CCTV at the start.
Nikki comes out, give her the keys, and off they go.
Right, we didn't see you give her the keys, unless that was in the car, maybe. Yeah, and this morning then was not the carnage that it normally is then, yeah? So that's different from what you're saying now. And we get a bit more of the CCTV now. And of course, we've seen this but without sound before. Insofar as we know that the car door is slammed. People ask, why don't we see the car drive off? And, you know, I wonder why. Maybe it's just a natural edit point, the slam of the car door. That's enough. But we don't see the car drive off.
And they set off, like...
But we do see Paul, head down, tightening his waistband on his dressing gown instead. Like, I don't know how much to, again, like, read into body language here, because I'm living in 3 different spaces. You know, I'm living in a space where this is the real CCTV, and it means, you know, this is what really happened on that morning. Another part of my brain is saying, like, you know, this might not be, so don't give it complete credence. Be careful. And then another part of my brain, you know, is basically imagining Chinese dancing girls dancing around, singing K-pop songs, like playing Genshin Impact, having fun, you know, like running through fields, having a laugh. Like, you know, part of my brain is just like not here with it, you know, like. But yeah, like, you know, part of my brain is going doody 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 is what I'm saying. But like here, Paul Ansell to me looks a little stressed. He's got his head down and he tightens up that waistband like that. You know, maybe it's cold, but there's a sense of like tension, aggression, stress. He looks like his shoulders are hunched and he tightens up that waistband. You know, maybe I'm reading too much into that, you know, but it's what I'm here for, isn't it? To read into body language a little bit and take it or leave it, I guess. Might be nothing.
The other morning.
But he almost seems defeated as well when he drops. You know, it's washing your hands of some. You can hear the sound on this, so there's no raised voice, there's no shouting at each other. But then Nikki being very quiet doesn't bode particularly. Like, if you're a relationship expert, you would say her stomping off to the car like that in silence seems like there's been a bit of an atmosphere, huh? Maybe she's just been upstairs to get ready. She's come down. He's done this. Like, where's the sort of "see you later, honey, I love you" kiss on the cheek? You know, there's none of that, is there? None of that at all. And then Paul's sort of tightening of the belt and dropping of the straps. That looks like somebody who's potentially had a disagreement or an argument, or is just like a bit fed up. Like, it doesn't look like he's in a good mood, and it doesn't look like she's in a good mood.
And they set off like any other morning.
Is there a little jump on that then?
And they set off like any other morning.
No, smooth, yeah.
Nikki would usually get back after taking the girls and walking Willow around about 10 o'clock.
He said as well, Nikki would usually get back from... Here we've got...
Walking Willow.
Walking Willow.
Would usually get back after taking the girls and Walking Willow.
The pacing there. She would normally get back after taking the girls and Walking Willow. It makes me feel like there's something there that we didn't say. That's how I feel.
Would usually get back after taking the girls and Walking Willow.
There's like a
about
missing beat maybe, and then it's edited again, cut to a different picture with him saying something that's slightly different from the interview. Like nice little footage of the kettle boiling, a la Simon Pegg.
I got about 10:15 and she wasn't back. I wasn't overly worried, but...
You were overly worried at this point, weren't you?
So my hours are like 6 hours behind in the morning. So when Nikki takes the girls to school, I then know that I've got like an hour to myself. And then I go in the house and I put the kettle on, make a cup of tea, and I think, right, I've got an hour.
Bit of peace. So at what point are you thinking something's not right here? When did it feel, where's Nikki? At what point did that kick in?
So she's usually back like 9:45 average, 10 o'clock.
Right, so 10 o'clock is different from what you're saying here, isn't it?
And they set off like any other morning.
Any other morning, which it wasn't like any other morning, you said in the first interview, yeah?
Nikki would usually get back after taking the girls and Walking Willow around about 10 o'clock.
Okay, so 10 o'clock.
Like 9:45 average, 10 o'clock.
Okay, similar.
At a push. So
At a push. So that's not exactly the same though, is it? Because she'd usually get back at 10 o'clock. She usually gets back at 10 o'clock. That's the time she usually gets back. But if it gets a bit later, at a push, 10:15, 10:30. But she normally gets back about 9:45, at a push, 10 o'clock. So she normally gets back about 9:45. They're slightly different, but we'll allow it, I suppose. I mean, I don't know.
I'd gone up into the office at 10, thinking that she'd be back in a minute. So I logged on. I was just going through some emails and stuff.
And this is different from how they portray it in the documentary, because they don't go up to his office, do they?
Setting my day up, and it got to say 10:15, and that's when I thought, she's later than usual, but I still wasn't like particularly worried because she has come back at 10:15.
Okay, so I'll stand corrected here. He's not worried or anxious at this point.
Sometimes, like she might just get talking to Emma or another
Find a friend
mom.
on a dog walk.
or anybody. So, it's not often, but she has got back at about 10:15, 10:20. So again, I wasn't like massively concerned or anything.
So he wasn't massively concerned at this point. He gets called by the school. He says 10:30. So there's only like a 10-minute window for him to send all these texts and start calling her. Yeah.
Then it got to 10:30, and that's when I thought, she's, quite late now, more late than usual. So I tried ringing her phone.
Okay, so he starts ringing her at 10:30. This is where the timeline inconsistencies come in, I suppose, but I'm not going to labour them too much here.
I got to about 10:15, and she wasn't back. I wasn't overly worried, but...
Do you know what, actually? That's the exact same wording as the other interview. It's almost like he's watched that interview and made sure to say the same thing. But then maybe he's just saying the same thing, huh?
When it got to about 10:30, the school rang.
Oh, then the school rang. So now we're different. Now we're actually different.
To say that somebody had found Willow by the bend.
In this version, we've totally cut out him being worried, him texting her, him calling her.
And Nikki's phone. And they can't find Nikki anywhere. And, that's not a normal phone call to get.
I agree.
And there was no answer. I tried ringing her on WhatsApp, and again there was no answer. So I tried the mobile again, and no answer, so I couldn't get her. I started to get a bit panicky, I think. So that's when I thought, right, I'm going to have to go down there and see if she's all right, you know, see if I can see the car or you know, see what's going on. But
so you're getting your gym gear.
Still expected that I'd just get there and just, oh, there she is, you know. So I go to the gym on a Friday lunchtime. So I quickly got my gym stuff on because I just thought, basically, I'm going to go out.
And obviously this takes time.
Find her, come home, do a bit of work.
Carry on, yeah.
Yeah, lunchtime, go to the gym. I was going to leave, and then the phone rang.
So he's got his gym kit on. That's taken some time. Between 10:30, when he says he gets worried, he starts calling her, he starts ringing her. He goes and changes into his gym kit. Then the school rings when he's leaving the door.
Lunchtime, go to the gym. I was going to leave, and then the phone rang.
But according to the documentary, the school ring at 10:30. According to the police report, following the emergency call at 11:01, call for concern. So, you know, the police report's not going to say exactly when, or does it say when the school rings? I can't remember now. I'm just quickly trying to check. That's why I don't want to go too deep into the timeline, because I think it's an actual job of like doing a video called The Timelines. But whether I want to make it or not, I don't know. But yeah, basically, you know, now we're getting the this is 10:56 on the CCTV. The watermark, the timer down the bottom right, 10:56, right? So he's out the door at 10:56. The school have called him. Like, the one thing we can assume from the truth of this CCTV, in inverted commas, but you know, the truth of this CCTV is that at 10:56 this has all happened. Paul has got stressed. He's phoned Nikki repeatedly. He's sent her the WhatsApp messages, getting changed into this work clothes. And it's all happened between 10:30 and 10:56, and the school phoning him. So he's had quite a busy 26 minutes there, basically.
She would never have left Willow. Something isn't right here. I remember almost having like a panic attack, just for you.
But bearing in mind, before that happened, he's had a whole hour just to himself in the house. So up to this point, he's been at home, he's been chilling, he hasn't got changed into it, he's been in the dressing gown, he's been setting up his emails in the office and stuff like he said. So he's had a whole hour of that and not feeling stressed or anything like that, you know, of course. Like, there's that elapsed time. She's gone, taken to school, there's been an hour, then he started to still, you know, this process of getting worried, texting her, and all this has gone on since, what was it, 10:30? So 2 hours have passed, haven't they? 2 hours have passed. She leaves at 8:30. At 9:30, he's still chilling. At 10:30, she's not back yet, and it starts to kick off, yeah? Well, he said about 10, didn't he? She's usually back about 10 at a push. So he starts to get worried, but he doesn't do any of this stuff till a little bit later. Yeah, it leaves a lot of time, doesn't it? There's that big 2 hours that he doesn't have Nikki in the house and he's not stressed. And then it's just towards the end of this process that he says he has this panic attack here.
And it was the school, and it was the receptionist at school, and she said, Mr. Ansell, it's a bit of a weird one. Hello. So it's a bit of a weird one, but we've found Willow and Nikki's phone on the bench, and the harness.
Again, here he says we found it, the school, but he corrects that. Obviously, we see in the documentary, doesn't he?
Halfway down the
in the call to the police, he says they found, or the phone was put on the bench. Like, he changes it to she put the phone on the bench rather than the school found it.
Embankment on the floor. So,
you're already worried at this point.
Yeah, because I'm just about to leave. So I've got my gym stuff on. I'm about to leave, thinking I'm gonna see her, you know, pass her, get there and find her. Then I get that call, and in an instant, it's like your whole.
Of course.
Because I knew straight away that it wasn't normal. You know what I mean? Like, because I said, well, where is she? And like, but they can't find her. So I also know that she would never in a million years leave Willow.
So at this point, when he leaves the door, going to the car, he's feeling all those emotions.
Bench and Nikki's phone, and they can't find Nikki anywhere. And I mean, that's not a normal phone call to get. She would never have left Willow. Something isn't right here. I remember almost having like a panic attack.
So during that panic attack, he strides purposely to the car and gets in it. I mean, there's not a lot of, let's be real about what he's saying there. There's not a lot of time between that phone call. He's like on the way out the door, he said. He was already in his gym kit preparing to leave the house. And like the house is just there. So like he's stood up in his gym kit preparing to leave the house, yeah? He gets this phone call. He has a panic attack. And then he walks out the door like that, purposefully to the car and gets in it.
I mean, that's not a normal phone call to get. She would never have left Willow.
I'm going to critique the idea that Paul Ansell is having a panic attack and his legs have gone as he strides purposefully into the car and the phone call that follows it. Because I don't know if have you had an experience of a panic attack? I mean, this might not be his panic attack, his gut feeling dropping, all that. Like maybe he's fought through it really valiantly here and kept his cool very well. But in my experience, I would expect to see less purposeful action, more confusion, more apparent stress. Maybe a stride to the car, a step back, have I got everything, a check the pockets, you know, more of this sort of anxiety signs. And then in the phone call as well, having literally just received the news, got into the car, called the police, that heightened state of anxiety I would expect to come through on the phone call, the way he's describing it.
To get. She would never have left Willow. Something isn't right here. I remember almost having like a panic attack, just where you feel like your legs have gone.
But this could I'll tell you what, this could ring true in both accounts as well. In any, like, you know, if Paul is, because he is saying he doesn't think she's in the river. Like, you know, he's saying that repeatedly all the way through this. Like, so he has this panic attack about what's happened to her, yeah? Like, I want to talk about this panic attack a little bit. Like, it might just be simply that she's not there. That's anxiety inducing. But has he got any other things he's jumping to? Like, is he worried that someone's kidnapped her? Or is he worried that she's run off? Like, the reason that clip was used in this documentary, me saying, oh, you know, she might just hate you and gone away, like, is because a lot of people in relationships have that issue where someone leaves them. Do you know what I mean? Like, a lot of people have that, don't they? Like, I've literally seen situations where people have been like in a haste to get somewhere because, like, they, you know, if they get there quick enough, she might not have left, or, you know, this and that. You know, I've seen people do that. You know, people get funny over their relationships like that, don't they? And if someone's missing, disappeared, is the first thought, you know, foul play, the river, or are there other thoughts that cross the mind? And those thoughts will also give you that panic attack and that gut feeling. So I wonder what his initial fear was, you know, whether it was just an absence of Nikki equates to fear. I don't know what's happened, I'm scared, or, you know, I hope this thing hasn't happened, you know. And he said he didn't really think it was the river, but he's having this panic attack like his legs have gone. So yeah, we get that, and then we'll have the 999 call, which we'll let him say this little bit. I know I pause it a lot, but we'll let him say this little bit, and then I'll go back to the start and listen to the 999 call from the perspective of someone who's having a panic attack, whose legs have gone, and is driving a car.
In a situation like that, your mind is going absolutely crazy.
And whose mind is going absolutely crazy.
And so I rang the police as I was driving.
Has anybody seen her this morning?
So we're cutting the 999 call up into sections here, you see? Like, so it has been edited. Has anyone seen her apart from yourself? So let's jump back, listen to the 999 call, and then I'll jump forward and try and connect them up. And we'll just see how crazy and panicked Paul Ansell is in this 999 call. He's driving a car as well. Presumably at speed.
It's emergency.
Oh, hello. My partner left this morning at 8:30 to take my 2 children to school, and the dog went with her because we take the dogs for a walk.
Right.
I was getting concerned because she hadn't returned home by 9:30. She's usually back by 9:30, so I thought she must have got chatting to somebody. I've been trying to ring her since about 10:30. No reply, and then the school's just rung me to say that they've just found the dog. Somebody's found the dog, and my partner's put her phone down on a bench and the dog lead, and she's nowhere to be seen.
The 45-year-old
Mind is going absolutely crazy. And so I rung the police as I was driving.
Has anybody seen her this morning, as far as you're aware, apart from yourself?
No. I mean, people probably saw her when she dropped the kids off, but I don't know if she spoke to anyone.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because that turns out to be a very important piece of evidence that Paul brings up. Has anyone seen her? This is my point about, it's, you know, a delicate thing to talk about, I guess, but if it was a pre-planned event and he had got this route that he was, you know, or maybe it's just that he knows her route, you know, so he's thinking she would have done this, she would have done that, she would have done this. But it's almost like he's thinking ahead, like, has anyone seen her? I don't know. Not since she left the house. Like, if you're asking me and I'm driving there, yeah, since she left the house, I don't know. Unless I've been on the phone to the school. Like, I assumed the reason he said that she was at the school so confidently because the school have told him on the phone, the kids are here, she's been seen here. You know what I mean? Like, but apparently no, the school have not said that to him. He doesn't know. And maybe she was at the school and maybe she spoke to someone, you know, which is exactly what apparently went in as like hard evidence that she was definitely at the school. I think it was Emma saw her at the school, wasn't it, that morning? I think Emma saw her at the school that morning. I think I remember that. So my point really here is that if it were, I feel like if it were me and I were asked that question, has anyone seen her? I would simply say, I don't know. You know, like, because I don't. Like, and I'd be inclined to just like not fill the space with loads of extra information that's useless, maybe, because it might be important for the police to find out if she's been seen at the school rather than me telling them she probably has, so don't look there, you know. Although he is concerned that she's gone away from the river, so maybe he wants them by the river, which is strange that he would then accept that he will meet them at his house later instead of by the river, because he's told to go home, I assume, at this point, isn't he? He arrives at the river. Well, I guess we'll have to check the next interview as well, you know, the other interview. But he arrives at the river. There's the dog lead and all this. He's on the phone. The police are talking to him. He goes home. You know, he's handed the phone and he goes home. So he gets to the river, but he's on the phone to the police here and amongst the process driving there, isn't he?
She has been struggling with her mental health, so it's very concerning.
The last few months
So there's the very concerning, you know, pointing that out to the police. It's very concerning. Again, how anxious and panicky he sounds, I don't know, but that would, we've discussed it earlier. I've, you know, pointed it out that would be very concerning if you yourself are very concerned, and that's your concern. In which case, you'll be heavily worried about that river, you know, that unaliving aspect. But in Paul's account here, we're going to find out that he's already said, like, he doesn't, you know, we've seen him say it a lot. He doesn't think she went in that river. That wasn't his initial concern.
Had its challenges.
So when you say she's been struggling with her mental health lately, does she have mental health issues?
No, not really, but she's been going through the pre-menopause, and that's given her a lot of issues.
Right, okay.
You know, she'd taken herself off somewhere, or unable to cope.
She had been struggling a bit, and she's been a bit up and down.
I mean, I knew that would make them act immediately.
I'm just here now, so I'm just walking up.
Okay.
When I got there, got handed Willow, and like then I was handed Nikki's phone, and I'm just sort of stood there like, well, what? I mean, I knew that would make them act immediately.
I knew that would make them act immediately. forcing the hand of the police. A strategy to force the hand of the police, potentially, or just a fact that he knew that if he said these things, they're likely to react. You know? Maybe something he's mulled over after the event. Why did I say this? Well, I knew it would make them react, so, you know, it came out. Or is this something that he said, like, we're talking about Paul Ansell as having a panic attack, and he's ringing the police on his drive down, and he knows that if he says this, this and this, it's going to get them to do that. It feels like a more calm and strategic choice to manipulate the police by saying certain things that would get them to act immediately. It might be that that's his major concern, is that Nikki, you know, has mental health problems, the menopause, and has possibly unalived herself. But he doesn't say that was my concern, I needed them there immediately. He says that would make them act immediately. That would make them, like, I'm sort of controlling the police's response, in a way. You know, good, I guess. Like, people, I've been in situations, I've seen situations, I suppose, where, like, you worry that the worst might happen. Someone might call the police and, like, you know, they might say, like, I don't know, like, do they have a weapon? And, like, you might think, well, it's only a tin of beans, but, like, the lid looks pretty sharp. And you might say, yeah, he's got something sharp in his hand. You know, get the police there. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, I've seen situations like that play out, I suppose. I don't know Ham Jovi if he did get rid of the dog. I don't know what the situation is with the dog. I can't confirm nor deny, but like, it's interesting to me that the idea here is that Paul would choose to, and I'm saying it in, you know, in all this, I don't want to come across as someone who's, like, deliberately trying to make things worse. But, you know, I'm choosing my language relatively carefully, but I'm saying things that sound bad, but they're sort of facts as well, aren't they? Because Paul's saying them. He's tried to make the police act immediately. That could be out of concern for Nikki. Even if he doesn't think she's done that to herself, he might just still want the police there really, really quickly. And he might want all the boats on the water, because that's the response that's going to happen. If you, like, another way of looking at it is, like, let's say someone went missing and you wanted a lot of research, you know, response from the police to try and find them, and you weren't going to get it. You might do this, and okay, there's going to be an over response in one area, like the river. They're going to get all the boats out and do all that, and you don't think she's there, but, you know, that's a waste of resources and everyone's time. But it's okay to do that because you want them there immediately, looking in other places maybe. So, you know, maybe there's a balance in that. I don't know. Like, it's what I'm really finding troubling is Paul saying that he thinks she's gone in the river and he needed the police there, or is he saying that he wanted the police there so he was prepared to press the alarm button? Like, it's like pressing the fire alarm when there's no fire, isn't it? In a way, I want this immediate response. I want this extra thing to happen. I want to be able to push the police in this direction. So I'm going to press the alarm, but deep down, I'm not smelling smoke. I'm thinking she's in the bushes. She's just going to turn up. She's not in that river. So there's an incongruence in behaviour and belief in my mind. I don't think the things he thinks and feels in his heart are the things he's saying to the police and getting them to do, because of what he tells us.
I'm just here now, so I'm just walking up.
I'm just here now, so I'm just walking up. So he calls the police while he's in the car, and the phone call, I mean, the distance between his house and that place, and if it was my missus that had been disappeared, and I was worried, the distance between me and that place and that phone call, you know, the police are going to be questioning how I made it so quick. I'll be on the phone to them, like, you know, while I'm screeching around the corners. Sorry, I'm not advocating for driving dangerously or anything, but you know what I mean. You're going to want to be there quick. You're going to feel that anxiety. So during the phone call, he's parked the car, he's got out, and now he's walking up. Or was the phone call that we heard from the point where he's been walking up the whole time? Because he sounded, I can't hear any sonic difference of being in the car and being on this path. But then again, I'm not listening to the whole call in order, and it's been edited and they put sound on underneath and all this. So I don't know. But at some point he must have got out the car and been walking up, and it might have been before the phone call started, after it started. According to him, it's after it started, because he's called them on the phone and now he's literally on the phone to them walking up. So I'm assuming this is one long phone call, including parking the car, you know?
When I got there.
and I don't know where he's parked and where he's walking up from.
Got handed Willow.
But I assume Garstang Road.
Like, then I was handed Nikki's phone, and I'm just sort of stood there like, well, what? What?
And this is confusing to me.
Like, Willow is like our third child. I got hit by that weird... It's like your world just drops out because you know something's weird has happened.
Again, contradiction. You know something weird has happened, but you obviously hope she'll just turn up.
I got in the car, drove down there.
Not a huge contradiction, but you know what I mean. Like,
ran down the river.
Got there, ran down the river. You didn't run down the river. I just heard you on the phone. You weren't running. Yeah, or maybe you finished the phone call and started running, so I can't, you know, but there's not a lot of distance between that parking and the river.
To where the bench is. Somebody had Willow, and obviously there was a few other dog walkers there and stuff like that. Handed me Willow, handed me Nikki's phone.
I love that expression when he says that.
There was a few other dog walkers there and stuff like that. Handed me Willow, handed me Nikki's phone.
We've obviously been through this before, but...
Phone. I still expected, obviously, to just have a look around, and well, there she is. All.
There we go then. So still, obviously, the moment you're handed Nikki's phone, you're expecting her to just be in the bushes or just around here. Like, you're expecting her to just be there.
Well, there she is. So, you know, we're all looking. I'm like walking.
It's that word again, isn't it? Expectation. What do you expect? That came up earlier, didn't it? A couple of times.
Into the field that way, like looking around the corners, looking over the hedge, looking over the stile, and, you know, nothing.
At what point did the police tell you to go home?
I rung 999 on the way, because I obviously knew something was wrong. So the police rang me then.
Oh, the police rang him back?
While I was at the bench and said, look, you've got to get home.
While he was at the bench, after he'd been around looking in the bushes?
Because the police are going to be coming to your house. We need somebody at your house. You get home, the police are on the way there. So I'd rung the police at like, I think about 10 to 11. And
10 to 11 he'd rung the police. Not exactly. He'd rung the police at 11:01.
They were there, like they got there at 25 past, so they were there.
25 past. They got there within 27 minutes, so I would say 28 past.
You know, really, really quick. So I then, you know, I'd gone home then.
So he'd gone home then.
And Willow back.
Taken Willow back. So he rang the police at 11:01. The police were there within 27 minutes. So he's had 27 minutes maximum to receive the phone, search for Nikki, and then go home. It's not, again, these are small time windows, aren't they? Like, small amount of time that he spent there. Assuming she's just going to turn up, come out from one of the bushes in a panic.
That would make them act immediately.
I'm just here now, so I'm just walking up.
Walking?
When I got...
Walking up, not running up, walking up. In his gym gear, walking up.
There, got handed Willow. And
which I should state it. Why isn't he running? He said he was running. In the interview, he said he was running. He's capable of running. She's missing. You've got a short window of time. You're having anxiety attacks. I would run.
Then I was handed Nikki's phone, and I'm just sort of stood there like, well, what? We would make them act immediately.
I'm just here now, so I'm just walking up.
Okay.
When I got there, got handed Willow. And
got handed Willow. He does this like it's an aggressive act. Got handed Willow. So the person who's handed him Willow is doing it in an aggressive way. And I feel his like face of like concern here, or like there's a little bit of performative here, right? You want people to feel the emotions you're feeling when you're feeling hurt, because it's going to elicit the sympathy and the response of the people. You know, these bad people have done this thing to and like, you know, I can understand this, because if he's worried about where his partner is, and he's arrived to try and search for his partner, and someone said, "Your dog's off the lead. Here's your dog." Your dog's off the lead. How insensitive, you know, how insensitive. Just like me talking all this shit on the internet, eh? But how insensitive. But they don't know exactly what the situation is, do they? Like, you know, they don't know his concerns, his deep concerns. They're just members of the public, and they think there's a lady that's missing. And so their world hasn't dropped out. Their legs haven't gone. They're not having the panic attack. They're just a little bit eggy because they're dealing with this dog for an hour. Since about 9:30, according to some of the, you know, when was this dog, you know, initially found? And you know, there's a small window, wasn't there? Becky's going to say as it goes on in this, a small window between Nicola's last accounted for movements according to her phone and an eyewitness from some distance, and then finding the phone and the dog off the lead, according to the people who found it. So they've been dealing with this situation outdoors. Maybe they're like, I don't know how eggy you might be if someone turns up and you hand them the dog. Maybe he's perceiving it as eggy, but I think he was thinking that people would be a lot more helpful or sympathetic to the plight here, because it seems like he's not. It's almost like he seems like he's ego wounded, or like, you know, hurt by the idea that someone's done this with the dog, handed him the dog, handed him the phone, and it's all been piled on him at this moment. But as I say, I believe this. The performative is a word because he knows he's on camera, yeah. And I can say, like, I'm not saying he's an actor. I'm not saying he's trying to ham it up or anything, but I could say any person when they're on camera, like, you know, talking to the camera, maybe like bring it up a bit. I got handed this and I got that, you know, like, you know, you feel like you're being watched by the camera, so maybe that element of performative comes up a little bit. But he's definitely trying to show you how he's like, it's almost like a victim situation he's in here, isn't it? Like, he got something happened to him now. He got handed this and he got handed Willow, he got handed this. Like, this is happening to him. Like, he's a passive person and this is happening, like, you know, he's being forced to hold these problems, you know?
Like,
and then he casts his hands out like this. Like, what do you want me to do? Almost throwing these things away, like discarding them almost, like cast his hands out, like, what do you want me to do? And then reaches forward quickly.
Then I would...
and we're doing this again, this is like bargaining, or like some people in conversation, you know, they use their hands a lot, expressive, but it's like I see it as like a kind of bartering or bargaining.
Handed Nikki's phone, and
we get that, which reminds me of being at school and seeing people who are getting told off go, I don't know what I've done, but he's holding his hands out over here as well. Again, this could be too performative for me to read a lot of body language into it, and again, shortcuts, so should I really read too much? Maybe not. I'm just sort of stood there like...
Well, what? What?
Let me get that second one. What? I mean, we can only confirm by the people that were there, you know, the authenticity of this reenactment of his reaction. You're not going to be holding Willow in one hand like this. You're going to be holding it like, you know, like pulling around. I don't know. It's really annoying me because I tell you, I have seen this like a lot of information can be gleaned from really good, excellent body language analysis people on the internet, just like listening to them and watching what they're saying and stuff like that, yeah. And this particular gesture, I know, like, it's not the same because this isn't an interrogation, but I know I've seen it described and talked about in terms of an interrogation, and I just need to go over and find where I have seen it. And it's not the same gesture exactly. It was hands in the lap, but I just get this, like, you know, there's something clicking in my head, and it's like, it's annoying me that I can't tell you verbatim what they said about it, so I just want to make sure I'm right before I say it on the internet. But I will conclude that little bit again by saying this could be performative because he knows he's on camera, and this is the bit where he's saying he was there, and You know, I don't know what. You know, like he doesn't bring his shoulders up defensively, which is good. You know, he's got his hands, but he's had time. You know, let's be real. He's had time to think about this, to practice his responses. You know, this is the big moment where they're going to ask this question again. You know, to even look in the mirror and see how he looks, all that stuff. If he wanted to, I'm not saying he would have done, but he's had time to if he wanted to. And am I reading this as like a natural body language read? No, definitely not. It's clips from a documentary. So.
What? We all started having a look. We were shouting. I just thought we'll find her and she'll be sat over there or she'll be sat there or something. Then the police turned up and I got told to go home.
Right, because that's slightly different from the interview, isn't it, that you just said. Then the police turned up and I got told to go home. Right? Because you spent 20 minutes shouting and looking for her.
It's her lap and all that. We're in that river on that. So, you know, just in a mad panic then, you know, because I got hit by that weird. It's like your world just drops out. So I'd rung the police at like I think about 10 to 11, and they were there. Like they got there at 25 past, so they were there, you know, really quick. So I then, you know, I'd gone home then.
So that clarifies this. When he says they were there, they got there really quick. I assume they meant his house because he was told to go home and meet them. But he means they were there on the scene looking for her. So then he got told to go home on the scene by the police, which is confirmed now in this, or made more clear, which is what we're looking for. More clarity, isn't it? Because this didn't provide enough clarity, we think.
Taken Willow back. Police officer would come to the house.
That Friday, I was just sat at my desk and I got a phone call from Paul, and he was panicky.
See what I say about them?
frantic.
See, now they've edited him in crying here, yeah? See what I say about these crying edits? The crying edit, I don't know when he cried here. I don't know what he's crying about. I assume it's Nikki, of course. Like, they film him crying about her a little bit later, don't they? But they edit in Paul crying into her testimony. So, like, you get the feeling that at the other end of the phone, Paul's there crying, all distraught. You know, because you can see him all distraught here now. Like, it's a useful piece of footage to amplify the emotive aspect of what's being said in your imagination. But she doesn't say Paul was crying, but here they show him crying, which is different, because usually in the edit, and you'll see it a lot, in the edit they will illustrate something like, he'll say, you know, we went to the river, and they'll show a picture of the river, you know, stuff like that, very literal. But then also, you get these moments where they just show shots of Nikki over at people's testimony. We'll see it later, we'll talk about it. You can show abstract images that don't connect to what people are saying while they're saying things that are, you know, about the general topic, or you can be very, very literal. But here they're being like kind of abstract, aren't they? Because she's not saying Paul was crying and stuff, but they're showing this image of him crying. So that's an editorial choice, as I said, to emotively colour this piece of testimony, or testimony, you know, interview, whatever you call it.
Friday, I was just sat at my desk and I got a phone call from Paul, and he was panicky and frantic.
So he says panicky and frantic, she says. Panicky and frantic. Not crying like this, but yeah. Something's happened, something strange has happened.
And he was like, something's happened, something strange has happened. And I was like, what? But if I'm being completely honest, I wasn't panicked by it. I thought it was strange, but I just thought it would be something really straightforward that had happened to Nikki.
So that's interesting as well, because Paul seemed to be distraught from the picture of him crying there. I mean, you know, the way she said he was panicky and frustrated, you know, like, but she wasn't. She didn't take his emotion and take that on. And I would feel like if someone in my close circle called me up in a high emotive state about something that was related to one of my loved ones, I would also join them in that emotive state. It would, you know, bring up that emotive state in me, whether I'd want to run around like a headless chicken or not. Like, you know. But she doesn't relate to Paul in this way, and he doesn't she doesn't empathise with Paul in this way. He's feeling that, she doesn't agree. She's on the phone thinking, no, he's been silly. Yeah, maybe that's a sort of sense of denial or shock in the first instance when you hear this sort of bad news.
He'd obviously gone to help somebody else, maybe another dog walker got in trouble or something like that. We got a phone call. That's a very short thing. Apparently, maybe I shouldn't say things that I'm not certain on, but apparently Nicola had gone to. This is from a, this is, I suppose it's hearsay, isn't it, from a post? But there's testimony from someone else that Nicola in the past had helped them retrieve she'd stayed to look for their lost dog, like for 40 minutes or so, and they were very grateful for that. So, like, she had a track record of doing things like that, helping people. So that's what Louise is actually alluding to there. It's not just like a random, idea that she's come up with.
Get away from Louise. To say Nikki's missing.
We drove over as quick as we could to Paul's, and I said, I've got to go to St Michael's. I've got to try and help.
So initially he says, I've got to try and find her, but then he changes it to help. I'm happy with that. The response from anyone that's concerned with Nikki is to drive straight over and try and find her. Yeah. He changed it to help.
And there was a lot of activity.
There was a lot of activity. Agreed. Police activity, you mean?
Fire, service, rescue.
Oh, all those sort of people, yeah. Like, activity is an interesting choice of words, isn't it? Activity. I've heard it used in conjunction. The reason I said police activity is because I've heard it used like police activity, criminal activity. I've heard activity. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going. Activity. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of people around. Yeah, activity is a word that covers that, I suppose.
Helicopters. That was something like that of a film set.
That's something that I just think, I'm surprised they edited it in, but not really. I think the reason they've edited that in, there is this sense that the documentary is poking at certain people, isn't there? Some people believe that the documentary is poking specifically at me. Well, it's got to edit at me, innit? But here, some people might believe that this is poking specifically at Chris's Substack, who published stuff about the helicopter, its flight paths, the day it's flying, stuff like that. It believes that this is a psyop, a film set. And so anybody stating that it looks like a film set would placate some people who say, well, the reason that people think that is because it looks a bit like a film set, you see. So Ernie thought that as well. So it's not a film set, it's real life, but it looks like one. So I see how you got that idea. Calm down, you nutters, isn't it a bit? Police search advisor there, look. Proper. This isn't Peter Folding now, this is a police search advisor.
The case was reported to police at 11 o'clock.
Reported to police at 11 o'clock, agreed. Yeah, that's the time of the emergency call. So, yeah, agreed.
When I arrived, there was already countless emergency services.
Countless emergency services. So a large police response, and something that we learned during the Nicola Bulley, I don't know what to call it, the amount of stuff I learned during covering this. But I learned that Lancashire Police, the reason Nicola Bulley didn't have an SIO appointed to this case, like what should happen is an SIO should turn up on the scene, senior investigating officer, but because resources are stretched, the SIO is currently engaged on they'd found some guns, hadn't they, the week before, found a big cache of guns, seemed like criminal activity, maybe gang activity, some sort of handoff maybe, something like that. Someone found a load of guns, and like when someone loses a load of guns like that, maybe there's further criminal activity to follow. So the police were appointed to deal with that, and it turned out through our investigation, well, through the COP report, that the SIO had been, the resources were stretched, the SIO was tied up on this other job, so they appointed a sort of intermediary, emergency SIO, and then the new SIO took over a couple of days later. So yes, there were loads of emergency services when this guy arrived, right? But what that meant is that anywhere else in that area, the resources were already stretched thin at this point before it started. At this moment, if you knew this was going on, it's just a thought, but you know, if you knew this was going on, if you had any indication that this might go on at this moment, the police are pretty stretched. So anything else that goes on, you know, if you need an SIO for something else or anything else that goes on, I mean, maybe they don't even see it because they're all here. I don't know, like, yeah. But yeah, there were lots and lots of people on the scene, countless emergency services, fair play. And this is one of the reasons that we all don't think she went in, the people that don't believe that she went in the river in that way that was described by the bench, described by the inquest, is because of this. We feel that these people are good quality people and would have done not just their best, but like we would all hope that within an hour of her going missing, they would have a very good chance of finding her.
At scene, and our dive team had just arrived. My role as the search advisor is to draw up a search plan. There were many possibilities. There was a possibility that she'd enter the water. There was a possibility that she'd sought time alone. And
now listen, before he goes making wild conjecture on the internet and the telly, interesting point to me, I'm not sure of this, he said he turned up a little bit later, everyone was on the scene, but he was there to coordinate and make the plan. So does that mean nobody was searching, but they were just there on the scene waiting for instructions, or were they getting busy already? But I don't know. Like, knowing from him when the search started and what they did would be the main one. His conjecture about whether she left the area and stuff, fair play, you know, interesting ideas, and that informs your search choices. But I'm interested to find out whether the searches were conducted thoroughly, and I do trust these people are good quality people. So,
and left the area. There was a possibility that she was ill or injured on land, so we had a land-based search.
Good.
In my mind, she was in the water.
So he's already got a bias.
Got a woman disappears next to a river at the top of a steep bank.
And that's assuming she disappeared from that location. And we're assuming that because the dog.
But the biggest thing was the dog, Willow. She was off the lead. There was nothing to keep her in that location physically, but she wouldn't leave the area between the bench and the water. If Nikki had walked off in a different direction...
No, he was assuming it because of other things. He said the biggest thing, but he didn't describe a list of things, so I think they edited that. But the dog was like, you know, strong indicator for him. He's trusting the dog. That's his choices. I don't know if that's in the police manual or whatever. But okay.
And maybe climbed over a fence and gone across fields, then why would Willow still be between the bench and the water?
So initially, the reports of Willow being found were that she was found some distance away from this location. Like initially, they said on Garstang Road. You know, we can question it, we can talk about it. I'm not going to bring up the pictures now, but there were conflicting reports of where Willow was found, and because Willow was handed to Paul, and we're getting like a sort of Chinese whispers of where she was, we need to go back to the original source of who found Willow and where they said they found her and what her behaviour was. And then we're going on an eyewitness account of a dog's behaviour from the way they saw it as they approached the bench. Because I'm assuming when they got there, the dog changed its behaviour. Like from a distance, you would have seen what the dog was doing, but when you approach with your own dog and you say, you know, what's going on with this dog, hello, and stuff like that, the dog starts changing its behaviour. You see the phone and the lead, and you know, like, so that's the strong indicator. And I understand why the police are diving the river, of course. I understand that, and I understand what they're saying, you know. The strong evidence that Nicola's gone in the river is that Willow's in that area. Someone said that they were running around there, and her phone's on the bench.
They dove the stretch slightly upstream of the bench and then continued downstream. They dove that...
I mean, I'm saying strong evidence. I'm saying for them, I'm putting words in their mouth there. I don't feel it's strong evidence, and nor did he, really. He didn't say that. He said this is the reason we thought this was his bias. Or I said bias, you know.
With two divers and told me that that area...
And look, they're doing a good job there. I don't know if this is filmed on the day. I don't know if this is stock footage of someone else diving in a piece of water. I'm assuming this is from the search, but potentially a different day in the search, because there was a lot of media covering searches. Like, these are police divers. Maybe it's on the day. They don't actually tell us. Like, you know, they don't say the footage is taken from and X, Y, Z, but...
It was clear. The report from the diver was that he was really having to swim against the current on the bottom. Because from the surface where we were stood, it looked like...
That's Snowdon on the bank. don't know when this was filmed.
The river wasn't moving at all. So
And this point here is against Peter Folding, is that he threw a stick in and it didn't move, so he says the river didn't move. But this guy's saying that the river underneath the surface moves quite quickly, so there's, you know, difference there. And Peter Folding also says that when you drown, you sink and you stay where you are. And maybe he's thinking of lakes, but here they're saying that if you were to drown, you could potentially be swept along by that undercurrent. So you could be under the water but being pushed along, and on top it could look quite still. But that is all taking into account the depth of the water, and he's saying there's enough water to do that. That's what he's saying, and he's, you know, the search specialist on the day, the police. So I think I will accept that there was enough water to drive something under the surface if it seemed on the surface it was still. Yeah, I will accept that. Of course, because the police knew that, they would then expand their search to the distance and range that someone could potentially be pushed by the water quite quickly, and they'd cover that, I suppose. So it's good that he's thinking like that, because he will have, you know, thought like that. Whether that's what happened, you know, whether it's a possibility that it could happen, or whether I think it's the most likely thing that it did happen, I don't know. Here you can also see the man stood on the bank that Nicola apparently fell down. But there's the first of all, there's the slope behind him, and then there's this bit, and then there's the river. So, you know, this is the situation we're in.
Knew that there was enough water on the bottom to basically carry a body out of that search area.
Which is basically saying F you Peter Folding, because Peter Folding completely said the opposite here.
One of Nicola's friends took me down to St Michael's, and I can remember seeing...
And of course, that then had to be questioned about whether she could pass the weir, and we're getting into further stories, but they're not here, so I'm not going to, because we're not even up to the 10-minute mark of this. I wanted to go 10 minutes onto the React. When's the next? Okay, we get up to 8 minutes 50. We're at 7:33. We're getting there. It's a long one. I knew it would be. It just is what it is.
My dad. And it was like white as a ghost. Just walking up and down.
So she was very upset when she mentioned how upset her dad was. Fair enough. You know, I could understand they'd be very stressed and upset. Paul wasn't as much, was he? But maybe we exhibit stress differently. But Ernie, very quickly, very early on, wanting to go and look for her, very stressed about the whole thing.
Went on, I remember the worry and the anxiety of everything.
Okay, so now the anxiety and the worry is taking over Paul as well, yeah.
And the fear, the severity of the situation slowly starts to build.
And that's an interesting point, because I thought your world had dropped out and your legs had gone, and initially you were hit with a panic attack. I can understand that, and then it's later increasingly feels severe, because he did say that he expected her to just walk through the door, and it wasn't really like he was going to wake up from this nightmare. So is it inconsistent? Maybe. You know, the reality could set in, I might say. The severity of the situation starts to build. I mean, yeah, you could say that. The severity of the situation. Severity. I've heard of severity used in conjunction with sentence, like the severity of the sentence. It's a very severe sentence. It's a very severe punishment. Severe punishment. That's a sort of word that I would connect there. The severity of the situation. I mean, yeah, the severity of the situation. Severity. Seriousness. Severity. I suppose the severity of the reality of what could have happened to Nikki in the river, because he hasn't sort of accepted that yet, maybe.
Late Friday evening, Lancashire Constabulary released a Facebook post. I think you knew how serious it was, the fact that they were going to that length so early on.
See, he said serious.
The aerial searches, fire and rescue teams, all of that went on until last light.
So on that day, they released a Facebook post that evening. So when people say they were interested in it in the first day, maybe people were interested in the first day if they'd seen the Lancashire Police's Facebook post.
At that point, if the river was our likelihood, then it was a recovery operation and not a rescue.
And they decide this early on that she's non-recoverable if she's in the river, which I can understand. However, it is plausible. Like, I'm a bit surprised by this, to be honest. Like, you could fall in the river and break your leg and float down the river and be like caught on a bush or something. I suppose they would have found you. They've done enough searching, haven't they? That's the issue there. So it is plausible that you could still be in the river and be alive, but not the way they've searched it then. Like, she'd have to be under the water if she's in the river, out of sight. And in this situation, that means that she's not alive. So that's tragic and it's sad. But they've come to that conclusion very early on. In terms of the river. And that's, I suppose, how it happens. Which is why, and there's Paul crying again, just edited in from nowhere. Yeah, it's a sad moment, illustrated by Paul doing that, but edited in from nowhere. It's interesting as well that I believe that's why they do such a good search. Like, I believe that's why they conduct such a thorough search in those early stages. Excuse me, because they have a limited time in order to, to do that. Again, I've got quite a lot of confidence in that early police search. Insofar as ruling out the river, because that's what the police said, isn't it? No, Peter Folding said that, didn't he? Peter Folding said that, and we took it for granted that Peter Folding made sense alongside the other side. I'm gonna need, I suppose, for someone from the police search operatives and people like that to clarify that with me. I don't, it's not going to happen, is it? But for me, I'm going to say that his assertion that if she was in the river she was dead at this point, which is tragic, what was that, my question there? Yeah, I've been doing this too long, I need to shut up.
And pick the girls up, and later
a friend
that
picked
night,
the girls up, and later it was that the friend that arranged the play date on the phone earlier, I don't know. Later I popped over there to see the girls. So initially there was all this talk about the pressure on Paul to deal with his children, but that was not on him immediately. He pops over to see them. He's got that. I think this is what I said in the early stages as well, watching the, when he went on the beach, on the banks, and he said, my focus is entirely on my two girls. I questioned it. And it's in the documentary, it's in this. No, your focus is on finding Nikki, no? But initially his focus is not on the two girls. It's on finding Nikki, as it should be, yeah? Because he's popped over there to see the girls. They're being taken care of by someone else. It might be his focus is on himself and his own mental state initially, to put himself together to conduct this search and to, to placate his children. But it is interesting, isn't it, that later on, standing on the banks, a week later, the entire focus is the girls. But initially, as we see, and I believe that during the whole process, and I say I believe it because they said it, the family have said it, Emma's said it, about how all these other people have helped to take care of the girls. And they were, Emma was in an interview saying, we've got to try and get these girls back home to Paul, meaning that they were being cared for by other people until Paul was ready to take care of them again, because he was quite immersed in this search, I assume. And the thing he said when he was stood on the riverbank about the girls being his entire focus, I pulled into question.
I popped over there.
That wasn't the only thing I pulled into question.
To see the girls who were now having a sleep over there. And when I went round there, I remember them asking where Mummy was, and I said that she wasn't feeling well. I just need to bide us time here to find her.
It says there, bide us time, but that's not exactly the right word.
That she wasn't feeling well. I just need to bide us time here.
I mean, he's used the words bide us time. I needed to bide us time. Biding time is when you're waiting for something, but he means buying time. Financially buying time. He needs to buy us some time. He needs to establish a buffer zone of time. So he's saying buy us time to find her. And this calls up into question, that GoFundMe straight off early, the 100 grand. Like, people suggested that they were looking to pay, like, people, not me. I didn't go on the internet and say, hey, he's done a GoFundMe for 100 grand, so they're looking to pay a ransom. Like, I wasn't the first person to invent that, and everyone listened to me. I'm being defensive again. But the idea was clearly there, wasn't it? It was thrown out there. This 100 grand, all of a sudden, she's gone missing. Do they need to pay a ransom? And the idea of biding time, or buying some time, like the idea that Nikki might, in my opinion, in his mind, because he said, you know, he's expecting to see her, he's looking for her, he doesn't think she's in the river. That was the last option on his mind in that other interview, you know, in this interview. So buying some time, he says bide, like waiting patiently. But buying some time, I'm going to say, because I'm not going to use the wrong word, even though he's using it, but I know he's using the wrong word, so I should use the wrong word, even though he means buy. Like, biding some time to find her. Get her back was a word used a lot earlier on. We need to get Nikki back. Get Nikki back to these kids. Yeah, get Paul back to his kids. To find her is different to get her back, but he's used find her.
Yeah, to find her.
After a little thought and a confirmation nod.
I went round there, I remember them asking where Mummy was, and I said that she wasn't feeling well. I just need to bide us time here to find her.
That's what you're biding the time for, to find her. Day 2. And we'll pick up day 2 for the next chapter. I'm sorry these things take so long. I think they should have been half the length. For those watching, for you watching, that's going to be a long watch. I get it. I appreciate it. And I'm not going to defend myself any further. You know who I am. You know what I'm about. And yeah, a lot of food for thought in this. A lot of food for thought. These are my initial thoughts after having watched it several times now. Let it all sink in. I did make some notes. I didn't refer to them. Picking it apart scene by scene. Giving you my honest feelings and thoughts from my brain as a human being. You're another human being. You be good. And if you can't be good, you're naughty.